Welcome to the Five Play YouTube channel, open mic number 175. Hope everybody's doing good today. And today we're going to be continuing with our rebuttal of Convicting a Murderer, episode number 5, which Dark started yesterday. And we're going to try to get that finished up today so we can do episode 6 at some point here, maybe next week. We'll see. We're going to finish this out and be done with it, right, guys? I think everyone's ready to be done with it.
Yes.
I know I am. So
Absolutely.
anyway, hope everyone's doing well today. I'd like to welcome. It looks like we've got 35 or so waiting in the live chat. So thanks for waiting. We've tried not to be too late today. So with that said, I'm going to, what we should do today. We didn't do it yesterday. Doc, we should say hello to everybody right quick.
Yes.
I don't want to take too long, but we've
let's
only got
do it.
5 sides. Yeah, we only had 5 sides. So, Neverly, could you go through the live chat and say hello to those that have joined us so far?
Sure. The first one on the post is Travis Camp. Hello, and he says good morning. So good morning wherever you are. Double D is in the house. Our mod Jaznaz. JD, hello. You're not on the panel, I see. Passive Bear, our friend Clive Coolidge, Random Pieces, Gloria, Emily says, rumor has it, Sheila Hawkins. Hey, Dr. Silkman, you're there.
Welcome.
Hello, Ellie Apperson. It's so good to see you.
Welcome.
Pete Moss, Graham Moss. Did I say rumor has it and Random Pieces? Catnit, our super mod. Thank you in advance for all the links that you put up. Lord Bucco, hello there. Kelly McCallion. Kay, hello Kay. I don't recall. Behind the Magic, Anthony Hills, Alice, and Ravi. Hello, Ravi.
Awesome.
There we go. Thank you so much, Neverly.
Sure.
So I'm basically this is Doc's PowerPoint that we put together, his slides. So I'm going to turn it over to him. Anything that you might want to get us caught up or kind of where we left off yesterday. It's entirely up to you, Doc. You do whatever you want. I'm going to mute and let you talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack61. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining us, our podcast. As Jack61 pointed out, what we're going to do is continue our rebuttal of episode number 5 of Convicting a Murderer, entitled Manitowoc's Involvement. And we're up to slide 10 at the moment. But before we do, I'm going to get everyone on the panel to say quickly hi, especially for our new supporters that have come online, which is awesome. So just quickly get everyone to introduce themselves. Jack61.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for coming. Like I said earlier, I'm Jack. I'm in Southwest Michigan in the United States. It's cold, snowy, and all that kind of stuff, but it's supposed to be. So we're used to it. I did send you an interesting video on Twitter there, Doc. You should check that out.
I saw it with the snowplow and the collection.
And they take it away by tractor trailer full. That's a real thing. I know you never see that, but it's a real thing. It's crazy, and they'll take it to like a. Well, it depends, but a lot of cities will take it to like a huge shopping mall where people don't really park and dump it. And it'll lay there till spring. It'll freeze and just lay there. It's crazy. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well, and yeah, thanks for coming.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack61. Next, we have Just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Silkman. I appreciate that. It's great to be here this afternoon. And like everybody else, I'm so ready to get on with this shit show out of our lives.
Yeah, it's been tough. Thank you so much, Just Rhonda. Next, we have I Don't Recall. Welcome.
Thank you. And hi, everybody from Northern New York, and welcome to Open Mic.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next, we have Katie. Katie, welcome. Good to see you here.
Hey, since we're disclosing our locations, it's Kay from the middle of the map. Anxious. I'm like everyone else. I'm anxious to do these last 5 slides and get on to the last episode and move on down the road.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. And next we have Susan. Susan, welcome.
Thank you, Doc. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Coming to you from the cold Midwest. I'm freezing. I just slid in from work, so I'm ready to go. Get this done.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. And next we have Alice. Alice, welcome.
Hi, Doc. Hi, everyone on panel. Hi, everyone in chat. It's great to see all the usual suspects in chat with us. And can't wait to get this all over and done with.
Thank you so much, Alice. And finally, we have Neverly. Neverly, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Silkman. Hi, everybody on the panel and in the chat. I'm from Serbia, representing Serbia. I live in Beverly Hills, of course, and it's 77 degrees along the coast here in Southern California. It's a beautiful day. Too beautiful, but.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I'm Dr. Silkman, and I'm from Adelaide, South Australia. And I tell you what, if you're living in Australia at the moment, we have got some wild and woolly weather, massive rain, huge thunderstorms. I think on our eastern coast, they're even looking at a cyclone. So it's all happening. So Jack 61, just a warning, if I drop out, it means the power lines have gone.
Yeah, we'll know why.
Yeah, we've had some huge winds. So
not only that you have winds, you also have some body of water filled with deadly sharks and crocodiles or alligators, whatever they are, all at the same time. What's up with that?
And the little blue ring octopus or whatever it's called,
yeah.
about the size of your
all at
hand
once.
or smaller, and they will kill you. They will kill you in like 20 seconds. You're just dead.
Welcome to Australia.
Welcome to Australia.
But
yeah.
also the most adorable, tiny little miniature blue penguins I discovered a couple of weeks ago. They're so freaking cute.
Correct.
So there's a good creature there.
Yeah, there is. So, welcome, guys. Well, look.
Well, we got the best. We got you.
I haven't been yet.
Listen. That little blue penguin is probably thinking of a plan to kill you. I'm just saying.
Or eat you.
Or eat you. One of the two. Yeah.
Correct.
Probably, but they stole my heart on the documentary I watched.
Yes. But just watch out for those drop bears if you ever come to Australia. Anyway, guys, if you're in chat, tell us where you're from. We're really blessed to have such dedicated supporters from all over the planet, which is awesome. Well, look, guys, what we're going to do, again, we're going to show some images, which I've put together from Convicting a Murderer, episode number 5, Manitowoc's involvement. And we started that yesterday. And today, guys, we're definitely going to be finishing this. It's been very hard, but we have a right for rebuttal. And again, guys, if you've got questions, please paste them in chat, and we'll try and answer your question judiciously as possible. Thank you so much, guys. The only thing that we ask is please be civil to one another and show respect. All right, guys. So Jack 61, are we able to look at the very first slide, which is slide number 10? So the format of today, I'm going to put up the slides, just spend about a minute or two talking about it, and then I'm going to pass it over to the panel, and we'll discuss it there. So Jack 61, we've got slide 10. It's actual number 10. We'll just wait we'll just wait for that to cycle through.
Oh crap! I got the wrong one. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Yep, beautiful. Just one more. Awesome. So in Convicting a Murderer, of course, and Jack 61 will talk about it in episode number 6. There was a lot of time spent talking about the involvement of both Lenk and Andrew Colburn. And both of these officers came up under a lot of scrutiny. And on the foul play team, we've discussed this many times. that is not right. And in actual fact, this disgusting behavior by supporters, no matter what side of the fence that you're on, to spread hate and to send death threats and to be generally malicious comments directed at law enforcement. They're there to do a job, and it's definitely not right to target individuals with hate and vitriol. It's very harmful, it is very disrespectful, and it does do a lot of damage. And in convicting a murderer, we saw how both officers, especially Andrew Colburn, received many death threats and basically a lot of hate using social media. It truly was shocking. So this was the subject of a lot of debate, especially in convicting a murderer. And you can see here on the left-hand side up the top, many supporters showed banners that implied that both Lenk and Colburn were corrupt, that they were involved in planting forensic evidence against Stephen. Of course, we're talking about the murder of Teresa Halbach here. We mustn't forget what we're actually here for. And so a lot of the supporters at rallies put up these posters referring to both Lenk and Colburn as being involved, as being corrupt. And of course, this led to a very heated debate between Rookie and Ken Kratz. And we all know what happened in court, right? The mere factor that part of Stephen Avery's defense was that he was alleging that both Lenk and Colburn were involved in planting forensic evidence against Stephen. Of course, these two officers were deposed in Stephen Avery's civil lawsuit. They were called up to give their depositions. Neither Lenk nor Colburn had informed Pagel, either Wiggett or Fassbender, that they were deposed. And of course, they were involved doing searches on the Avery salvage yard for many days. And both these officers were also in Stephen Avery's trailer in multiple occasions, and they found a very, very controversial piece of evidence, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And Jack 61 will probably talk about it in episode 6. But that's not where it ended, unfortunately, because Andrew Colburn, as you can see here on the bottom right-hand corner, he was involved in receiving a telephone call from another county, another jail, in which an individual said that he had committed a crime in Manitowoc and that somebody was in prison for what he had done. Now, Colburn allegedly passed on this call. It eventually went to the sheriff, and basically the gist of what had happened was that the sheriff was basically stating, hey, look, we've got the right guy. There's nothing to worry about, etc., etc. Now, this phone call occurred in 95 or 96. As a result of no action being taken to follow this up further, it meant that Stephen had to sit in prison until he was exonerated in 2003, right? So that's an extra several years in prison. So this caused a lot of controversy, and there was a lot of vitriol and attack directed towards Lenk and Colburn. Now, before I ask the question for the panel and also people in chat to discuss, if you haven't listened to it, I strongly recommend you guys check out the Defense Diaries podcast. And thank you, Justin J, for your gift of the memberships. We really appreciate that. If you haven't listened to it, guys, go and check out the Defense Diaries podcast. It's running at the moment. Basically, it is please correct me if I get this wrong. It is 2 attorneys in criminal law who are going through all of CASO and the MTSO summary report and other documents page by page. And you can actually follow them as they're doing their podcast by having up your CASO. And that's exactly what I did yesterday.
They are doing that exactly, and they're asking tough questions, hard questions. They're being very judicial. They're
Yes,
being
they are.
very cautionary, but they are on it. I can tell you that they are on it.
So they're doing. Thank you so much, Jack 61. They're doing this from a legal standpoint, right? They're attorneys, I believe they're defense attorneys, and they have read reports like this all the time, right? So they're very familiar with the reports and the style of report writing. 2 points.
Yeah, Doctor. Just one more thing to add.
Yeah,
I'm
of
sorry
course.
to interrupt, but
No, not at all.
I actually just listened to a couple of days ago one where they were talking about the CASO reports and in the manner in which they were written in the
Yes.
narrative. They
Yes.
questioned it because, I mean, like them, I had never seen anything like this from a police department. So you have to look at what we were handed. You know, we were glad to get the CASO report. It's all well and good, but it's in the narrative, and people don't understand. It's not an. I mean, it is a police report, but it's writing it and telling a story instead of you seeing the actual report and what's in it. And
Correct.
these were reports. People have to remember these reports. A lot of them were written days, even weeks, even potentially months after the fact. I just had to add that in.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That the
okay.
The comments by these two attorneys was actually quite shocking. They basically concluded that these reports were written contemporaneously. In other words, they weren't written on the same day or a day after. They were written often weeks, often months after the fact, which meant that detectives, law enforcement officers were able to get together and potentially collude a story and then write it down in a report. And what is very, very interesting is that these attorneys said the most damning report out of all the ones that they've read so far involves the finding of the key. Remember Jack 61?
Yep.
They were absolutely shocked by the way that report was written. And you can go to CASO, it's page 146. And the reason why I'm talking about this, it's very relevant to what we're discussing right now. And these two attorneys said they've never seen a report written in the manner that Kucharski wrote it. And the reason why they were so amazed is the level of detail that's written in that report. They said normally reports like this are not written so cautionary. And they actually read out the entire report on the defense diary, so check it out. They were very suspicious because the manner in which Kucharski wrote the narrative, it's as though he knew that they were going to get scrutinized with the finding of the key.
Oh,
right?
oh yeah, absolutely. Remember what Kratz said in the remember what Kratz said in Convicting a Murder. You guys just fucked up my case.
Correct, which we'll be discussing in this. So it's very, very interesting that these two attorneys who've got no skin in the game, they basically wanted to determine themselves, which is what we urge everyone in chat to do. Don't listen to us. Go to the original reports and the trial transcripts, read them, make up your mind. Don't listen to us. What these guys are doing is exactly that. They've got no skin in the game. They're going through the official documentation. But they said, guys, there is a written narrative here. So in other words, these attorneys do not trust the reports. And one thing that they said, Jack 61, which blew my mind, they said, you're never going to convince us that the key was not planted by Colburn and Link.
That's right. Of course. I mean, it's so obvious.
These are attorneys, right? And they said, listen, we do not believe the narrative in which the key was found. And one of the most damning things that they left out on their report, remember Jack 61? There were two reports, one written in the MTSO case summary, one written in CASO. one thing that they don't mention are all the coins and materials on top of the cabinet
That's
that
right.
allegedly Colburn shook. And both
And he,
attorneys
yeah, and he talks about that. Yeah, he talks about that in episode 6. Colburn does. I think it's episode 6.
Correct. He does. He does. So, in other words, the attorney said, listen, we saw the state of the cabinet before Lincoln Colburn discovered the key. We saw the pictures after they discovered the key. The material is still on the cabinet, the coins. He goes, if that was a true in situ picture, all the material would have been off the cabinet because they literally shook the cabinet in order to check for pornography or any other potential forensic material. Both of these attorneys concluded they believed that the key was planted, and hence now they have a doubt. He goes, now we have a legitimate doubt on every piece of forensic evidence. And Jack 61, what did they mention? They're very suspicious of Cuss Road. They're very suspicious of all the burn barrels and the burn pit. They came up with the same conclusions that we have, and I know a lot of people in chat, and these individuals do not know who foul play is. They know our name, but they don't know.
They kind of do, but yeah, I'm not sure how far. I've been trying to post a few things in their Facebook group too, you know.
Yes,
but
yeah, correct. But they've never come on and done a podcast with us, right?
No.
Yep,
that'd be great.
Yep, oh, would be. So they've come up to these conclusions themselves, and they're attorneys, right? So that's very interesting. So, guys, my question is this. We know that both Lincoln Colburn received a lot of scrutiny. My question to the panel and in chat, was that level of scrutiny justified? Let's go for it, guys. He's got some opinions. Jack 61.
Well, I've definitely got some opinions, and you know what, I think that there's different levels here that I think we need to. I mean, for me, we need to separate them. Death threat scrutiny, no, I don't agree with that at all. It should have never happened. Anything threatening any police officer, you know what? In my opinion, go screw yourself. You don't threaten the cops. That's not the way you handle it.
Correct.
If you have a problem with a police officer, go down to the station and ask for a meeting with, their supervisor or the sheriff or whatever. You don't call them up and threaten them on the phone. You don't do that. The other scrutiny, however, I think is justified because now we're up to, I don't know how many stories we've got about the key and, the things that got added in after Making a Murder aired. I know that Colburn wrote a letter to the current sheriff, whoever the hell he was, right, Doc?
He changed his narrative. He changed his narrative again.
He did change his narrative. And then, of course, in Convicting a Murderer, he even says, I don't know how those coins didn't move. Well, they didn't move because your story is not true. That's why. So, and then, Link, probably a little bit less than Colburn. I'm not going to say totally less because there was some weird shit that went on there too, because he was in that trailer when the key was found. Whether he knew anything about what the hell was going on or not, I don't really know. But I think that Susan said it actually several weeks ago. Kacharski is the one that's supposed to saw the key when it got dropped or whatever the hell went on there. I don't know.
It was Kacharski.
It was right.
To discover the key.
And people have to understand how close that bed really was where he was sitting to that wall and that little desk area. It's only like a couple feet, if that, maybe a foot and a half. It's not far at all. It's a small bedroom, tiny.
Yeah, yes, it is.
So he was the one that's supposed to saw that damn key, in my personal opinion. I agree with Susan 100%. So I do think, okay, let me back up here before I pass on the mic to Rhonda. Think about the 95 or 96 call whenever this thing was supposed to have happened. I've questioned it. I've said things that I'm sure people don't agree with, and I'm okay with that. But if that call was so important, why wasn't it reported back in 95 or 96 instead of 2003 when all this other stuff went on? Why is that? I just don't get it. Other than covering their ass and thinking about the Doug Jones memo, come on, guys. So, and then on top of that, I'm almost positive this call, 95 or 96, was not turned over to Peg and when Mark Rohr went up to get this whole thing investigated because this big pile of shit got dumped in his lap of this, this accusation and law or potential wrongdoing happened in Manitowoc Sheriff's Department. Got really poured on top of his head. He's screwed. No matter what he does, he's screwed, and he knows it. So when he goes and asks for help, I'm pretty sure that call was not part of the package. I can't prove that 100%, but that's what I believe.
Yeah.
So that's very questionable. So I think in part of that question you asked, Doc, I think that has to be included. And then there were other things. He's a road patrol sergeant, but yet we see him escorting Avery in and out of jail as a jail bailiff. Well, what the hell is that all about?
He's right next to Brendan Dassey as well.
That's right. That's exactly right. So anyway, that's all I got. Sorry I rambled on so much.
So do you feel, Jack 61, that the level of scrutiny was justified? No, I'm
not
talking about threats. That's disgusting. But
right.
In terms of people asking questions of both Lincoln Colburn, what their involvement was. Do you think it's
absolutely? I do think it's justified. And that also brings in, again, I didn't really talk about it because I'm sure we're going to talk it to death again. And this is about the 922 call on 11-3. There are a lot of questions that I have that I can't answer, and no one else has been able to help me answer it. As to why he had to make that call when there was an attempt to locate broadcast hours earlier. Why would he have to call? He had been to HQ on top of that. Why would he have to call and verify this license plate? Was he standing behind that car? I don't think he was. But there's that little tip of doubt there in my mind. It's like, what? Why would he call? And on top of that, why would he use his cell phone instead of his radio? Rookie asked it in episode 6. Why would he use his cell phone? That's really questionable to me because they call in plates all the time. Well, his excuse in convicting a murder is, well, I didn't want to let people know that had a scanner out there that we had that this was a missing person.
No, scanner.
What? And it gets broadcast at 10 o'clock that she's missing.
Yes.
Come on. I don't know. Yeah, I think the scrutiny is justified, but the threats and shit, I don't agree with that at all.
Thank you so much, Jack 61. What is incredible about those two attorneys from the defense diaries is that they take a mental note of all these events. They take a mental note who was present, at what time they were present, and their antennas went straight up when it came to Cuss Road. Why Lincoln, Colburn, and Tyson had to be called back to Cuss Road, had to go to Cuss Road twice.
Yep.
These guys are very, very sharp, and they're taking mental notes of the main players. They could not believe the searching of the bedroom and the finding of the key. And if you haven't read it, I implore you guys, go to page 146 of CASO, have a read of that report now that you understand the significance of it. Just Rhonda, your opinion, was all the criticism justified of Lincoln Colburn? What do you think?
Yes, I believe it was justified. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much, Just Rhonda. What about you? I don't recall. Do you think that criticism was justified?
Yes, I do. 100%.
Okay. What about you, Katie? What's your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely justified. I mean, if they didn't want to be scrutinized, they should have followed the rules and stayed out of the investigation like that. Be
Interesting.
At home making some sandwiches.
Thank you so much, Kate. I think Susan has just left for a second. Alice, what about yourself? Do you feel that level of scrutiny was justified?
Yes, Doc, I do. like I've always says from the very beginning, and I'll not change my mind on that, it's their actions or lack thereof is what's put them in this position. Nobody else, nobody else can. What they did or didn't do to that is why they've been scrutinised the way they've been scrutinised, and it is all the way it's supposed to be.
Very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Alice. What about you, Neville? What did you feel about the level of scrutiny? Justified?
Well, I think it was justified. And we're talking about a police department. I think that they were taught in school, academy, whatever they go through, that that's an intricate part of their profession, of their career. That they're going to be scrutinized, because them if you do, them if you don't, as Fassbender said. So there will always be people are watching, and being in a position of authority, they can only expect that. Same with people that work in court, same with doctors and so forth. But when you think about it, anybody that does any kind of work, if something's in question, people are going to ask questions. And I don't see what's wrong with that.
Correct. Thank you so much then,
If everything is on up and up, why are you afraid?
Yep, correct.
It just makes you look bad. But as far as the threats are concerned, that's really pathetic. And anybody that makes a threat towards anyone, that's really mental and inexcusable. Really inexcusable. Yeah.
100% agree. I feel that, and we've discussed this as a panel many times. There is no justification of personally attacking anybody in the community, law enforcement, because these individuals, they put their life on the line every day for the protection of the community. But Colburn and Lenk should have known and realized that everyone was going to be hyper scrutinized because of the case, because of who they were dealing with. Stephen Avery, who, as you know, had a civil lawsuit going on at the time, and they should have known better. But what is extremely disturbing is the reports on the finding of the key. When you've got two attorneys who are going over the case in a very professional manner, reading every word, checking all types of documents, and even they do not believe on the authenticity of the key, that's a problem. And they even commented, they do not believe that Teresa Horbach's DNA would not be on that key because it's her daily personal key. And they certainly are very worried about how Stephen Avery's DNA got on that key. And this is a real big issue. And even Ken Kratz, what did Ken Kratz say, Jack 61, about the finding of the key? Now, this is a prosecuting attorney.
Oh, it's a game changer. Game changer.
Yep. In which the victim's vehicle's key is found in your primary suspect's bedroom. Now, instead of...
But 6 to 8 days after the place has been searched 5 or 6 times, Doc. No wonder Kratz said, you fucked up my case, because they did. If that key had been found on the first or the second search, we wouldn't be talking about it as much. You know what I mean? But because Link was there, Colburn was there, and all of a sudden that key is being found, no wonder that they got the scrutiny that they got. And like everybody else has said on the panel, they did not deserve to get people phoning them up.
Correct.
And, saying, you're going to die, or you should die, or, anything
or watch
like
out,
that.
I'm coming for you. Yeah.
That sort of thing. Colburn shouldn't have got the messages, but you can't control people out there. I mean, I know we don't like talking about politics, but look at half the Trumpers out there. You know what I mean? The supporters anyway thinks the sun shines out his backside. You know what I mean? There's just some people that you can't reach. when it comes to that, and the only way that they feel that they can get the point across is by phoning up somebody, you know, and saying these sort of things. So that I feel sorry for Colburn for, because he shouldn't have, you know, been able, he shouldn't have had that at him, directed at him like that. But the rest of his actions, I just can't forgive. You know, it's deplorable what they've done. You know what I mean? So
Correct. Yeah, I agree. And it's very interesting that these attorneys said exactly what Dean Strang had said as well, that they planted the key in order to secure a conviction because they felt that Stephen was guilty. But their timing was very wrong. You're correct, Alice. Their timing was very, very wrong. Because remember, on the 7th, they found the burnt electronics. Then on the 8th, all the other evidence all of a sudden just pops out of thin air, right? The finding of the key, instead of being a celebrated piece of forensic evidence, actually became a horror for them, an absolute horror. Susan, did you have a quick comment about whether the scrutiny was justified?
Absolutely, it was justified. It should not have been on that property. Should not have been finding evidence. Of course, I don't agree with what some did to him, you know, calling him and all that stuff, all the nasty messages. But yeah, yes. I mean, like Neverly said, that is part of their job. And if you are an honest cop, you know, you should have no problem being scrutinized in what you've done.
Susan, are they coming after you? Are you
I think it's linked.
Yet, they do not
Not me.
complain when they get professional immunity. Then no problem to that, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. So again, guys, I just want to echo in my words before we go on to the next slide. Under no circumstances do you spew your vitriol and your hatred towards another individual. It's unprofessional, it's disgraceful, and it's also extremely childish, right?
Pitiful.
Well, and it doesn't accomplish anything at all. It makes it worse.
It does not accomplish anything. Directing your vitriol and hatred, especially to the law enforcement officers, is not on, right? Then
it makes you look like a lunatic. So why would you do it?
But not only that, it also makes the police officers more defensive, more resistant, and they certainly won't answer questions, etc., etc. You know, that's the trouble with our age now of keyboard warriors. It's not good. Did they deserve the scrutiny in a professional sense? Notice what I said. In a professional sense, absolutely. Look, if you've got two attorneys who are just looking at each other going, that key's planted, right? And here's the problem. When you plant one piece of forensic evidence, it casts doubt on all pieces of forensic evidence. These guys, these attorneys have already picked up the shadiness of Cuss Road, the shadiness of the key, the shadiness of finding the RAV4. And they also talked, they'll continue their series. They also talked about their problems regarding all the burn barrels and also the burn pit, the finding of the cremains. Guys, they're only on page 146 of CASO. CASO's got over 1,000 pages, right?
Well, they got some whoppers coming their way.
They really have some whoppers, which is amazing. But they're being very, very diligent, and it's great because we've got all the documents. They're free. Anybody can grab them and follow along on their podcasts. You know, be really awesome. All right, guys.
Dr. Silkman, just real quick, it's a little tidbit over here. As we were talking about planting, if one thing is planted, as they said, we should consider everything else potentially being planted, right?
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree.
Well, in law, I don't know if everybody or anybody follows Bruce Rivers. He's the one that usually defends
I love Bruce
Rappers.
Rivers.
I love him. I know.
Stop
I know.
snitching.
Settle
I
down,
know.
ladies. Settle
Oh,
down.
Sorry.
He's
Sorry,
so cute.
sorry.
He always says at the beginning of his podcast.
Is that the lawyer? Is that the lawyer you know, Neverly?
No. He's the Greek god. No, this is Bruce Rivers. He's the one with
Oh.
Bentleys and private yachts and jets, and he's really cool.
Bruce Rivers is
My bad.
awesome.
Is that the attorney that's got an AK-47 on his back wall? He's got guns.
He's got a gun. He's got a gun on his desk and like
on his back wall.
pearl cufflinks and stuff like that. You see my Rolex? Yeah.
My bad.
I think you're talking about Runkle of the Bailey, if I'm not mistaken.
Ladies, I didn't mean to compare champagne to beer. My bad.
No, he's really cool. He's into like dapper clothing and stuff, really kind of old-fashioned, classy. But he always says, stop snitching. That's his motto, But he also says, falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus, which is Latin for if you find false in one thing, you can find false in everything. And that's what lawyers are taught. So that's why they try to impeach somebody. And, if you get caught in a lie on the stand, like Colburn did when he claimed that his marriage fell apart due to Netflix, the stress of Netflix. And we know that that's a lie. And then he lied in this case as well. So, there's the scrutiny. So you can't be lying and then complaining that people are going to be questioning your reputation, immaculate reputation. So you can't have it both ways.
I agree. Yep. I agree. Yeah, it's a terrible situation. But again, there was a lot of suspicion regarding that key. Have a read of page 146 in CASO, and you'll see the way the report has been written is very, very hyper vigilant. We changed gloves. We did this. We're within 2 feet of each other. We're always in eye contact, etc., etc. But none of them actually heard the key drop to the ground, which is very, very interesting.
Well, that brings up a whole other problem that we discussed yesterday. This sapping of resources that Kucharski in this position is having to be the minder of 2 veteran cops. It's bullshit. It's just such crap.
And from what I understand, it was actual Kucharski that was giving orders to Lincoln Colburn, right? Kucharski was in charge. So it's very, very interesting. Hey, we welcome JD. JD, welcome.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, JD.
Welcome.
Hi, Jay.
All right.
Hi.
Jack 61, shall we get on with the next slide? Yeah, we're doing well, JD. Yourself? Okay, we'll get back to JD in a second. Now, I just want to make a quick comment over here. This is what I found completely mind-blowing. In Convicting a Murderer, episode 5, they spent a lot of time talking about Stephen Avery's civil lawsuit, and they were trying to trivialize it at all occasions. Oh, look, don't worry, there were insurance companies that were going to pay for it. It wasn't an out-of-pocket expense for anyone. It really wasn't going to hurt anybody. And once Stephen had settled, and I remember Fassbender even said, hey, look, the lawsuit got settled. Why were we after Brendan Dassey? Come on. That can't be the possible reason, right? And it's remarkable that they tried to downplay the impact of the civil lawsuit that Stephen had at that time, right? So my question to the panel is this. Why was the civil lawsuit continuously downplayed on Convicting a Murderer? How come it was no big deal that Stephen had this potential massive lawsuit against the sheriff, the ex-sheriff, Tom Kacerek, and also the district attorney, Dennis Vogel? Why? Why did Convicting a Murderer keep on downplaying the severity of this civil suit?
They had to.
Jack 61.
I think that
Go ahead, Susan. And then
Susan.
you can talk
I
first.
was just going to say, I think they want people to forget that Stephen was wrongfully convicted the first time.
Good point.
Yeah,
Good point.
and this connection, a lot of people have not taken the time to see. I harp on it all the time. Doc does. Others that have been through these deposition that we have. There's 6 or 7 clips out there in the world. They're just clips. They're not very long, 2-3 minutes, whatever. That John Frack got. There was, I think, maybe one more that got added during the Coburn v. Netflix. They got released publicly. The part of a deposition, but you have to go through and read them to fully understand that Glenn and Kelly, these guys were masterful. They truly were. There was still information I'm sure that they didn't have, but they did have the reports where Deb Strauss and Amy Lehman had went and interviewed these people. They were armed with these reports during these depositions, and these people were trying to change their story, and they couldn't.
Correct, because everything had been taken down and written down, and that's why the attorneys, they were having a field day. Because
They
remember,
were.
61, how all of a sudden people like Dvorak had memory loss. People like
Yeah.
Mark Dora couldn't remember anything and kept on saying, I don't recall. But the attorneys had all their statements down. They knew what they'd said. And now all of a sudden they couldn't recollect that. But what I can't understand is, why did convicting a murder, and someone made an excellent comment, is basically to put out the fire of making a murderer, right? Take away the impact that Stephen was having at that time. Susan.
There was another really good comment. I can't say who said it, but it also destroys law enforcement's
Integrity?
Motive for
no, their motive.
Yeah, for
their motive for framing Stephen.
That's right. That's another whopper. And again, I'm going to bitch about it again. You guys are tired of hearing me talk about it. But in June of 2005, they knew that Gregory Allen was under suspicion for this 1991 cold case. There is no way under this earth, this sun, this solar system, that Manitowoc County or the state wanted that information out in the world. It would have killed them. They would have absolutely been destroyed in the media. And this would have rolled up back to Vogel and Kosarik because they gave him a pass.
Correct.
So if the lawsuit had moved forward, none of this shit had happened, at the end of October, and moving forward, Vogel and Kosarik get their depositions. There's a real chance that Glenn and Kelly would have found out about Greg Allen, right? And if that had come out, I'm telling you, it would have been bad, bad, bad for the state. And they knew it. They damn well knew it.
I just want to shout out that was Anthony Hills that said that.
Thank you.
The motive.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Yeah,
thank you. And I'll get on to Neverly and Alice in a second, but don't forget what Ken Kratz said in his opening statement. He goes, whatever happened to Stephen in the past.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
That bears thank you, Neverly. That bears no relevance to now. Yet, Kratz wanted to bring all of Stephen's past misdemeanors into play. All the allegations, he wanted to bring them into play because it was a powerful form of character assassination.
That's right.
He wanted both ways. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
So what Ken Kratz failed to do in the trial, Convicting a Murderer did in the documentary.
That's right. And in Kratz's book.
Yes, and in Ken Kratz's book, they dug the sewer heap and brought it all to the front because Kratz was legally blocked of doing it by Judge Willis. And yet Kratz said his Stephen's exoneration and what had happened to him bears no role or part in the murder investigation, right? So he's trying to have it both ways. So essentially, what they were doing, and you can see it in Convicting a Murderer, is essentially disarming any form of sympathy for Stephen in any manner. Yes, he's done terrible things. Yes, he went to jail, and yes, he got fined. Others were allegations, and he never was charged for those things, which we talked about in the volatile episode 3 and episode 4. So it's very interesting that when it came to the civil lawsuit, it got settled. He got a payout. He got 400,000. What's your problem? It's all over, etc., etc. So in other words, you can't have it both ways. You can't have all these horrible allegations and statements, all the past that Stephen Avery did back in 1984, 85, earlier, and bring it up now in order to change your mind and to say, well, if Stephen did these things 20 plus years ago, then he's capable of murder, right? And so the problem is, Jack 61, the problem is, guys, he had the sheriff and the district attorney on toast. And Jack 61, you made a very valid point, same with Susan. If that information about Gregory Allen got out, then it would have been written up in the press. And furthermore, Stephen would have had a very, very powerful element, and same with his attorneys, to say, my client was sitting in a cell while other women in Manitowoc and elsewhere were sexually attacked by a known vicious sexual predator with a long history.
And these guys let him go. These guys let him go.
Judge, what are you going to do about this? Which means that Stephen would have got higher amount, I believe, a higher payout because of the impact that Gregory Allen being free for an additional 10 or so years, to Lord knows how many women he molested, attacked, peeping Tom, took photographs, you don't know. All while Stephen was sitting in a prison cell doing the time that Gregory Allen should. So it's an embarrassment. It's a stain on the community. But I could not believe Convicting a Murder just dismissed it. And have a look at Brenda Schuller's face. No, there's no problems. It all got settled. And Tom Fassbender even said, why would we go after Brendan for? You know,
I think Separate. Yeah, I think Separate said it really well. The insurance company, under a normal condition, they will pay out. But if a cop is caught doing something outside of their charge, they will not cover that. That's not part of their deal.
Yep, correct. And I believe Neverly said it yesterday. I don't think it was to do with the money. I think what would have happened is there would have been further scrutiny when Kaseric was the sheriff, when the district attorney was doing cases, and they would have gone back and had a look at historical crimes. Because if Stephen had been successful, then potentially other prisoners who were arrested by Kaseric or tried by the district attorney, or even had forensic evidence, hair forensic evidence done by Cherie Culhane in the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, could have put up their hand and say, look, I demand a retrial. So it would have potentially had a very bad domino effect. And what was said yesterday, I can't remember who said it on the panel, or was it in chat? It would have been another reinvestigation into Ricky Hochschlatter. And I tell you what, could have been, thank you, Neverly. That potentially could have been very, very interesting. Why? Because it's exactly the same players involved in the Stephen Avery case as were involved in the Ricky Hochschlatter case, right? Including Colburn. Yep. All right, guys, I can't see the microphones. Does anybody else have a comment?
Neverly does.
Neverly.
I was going to say something, but I squirreled. Yeah, regarding Cam and demonizing Stephen Avery, I think that Kratz was just rubbing his hands together in joy. And I can speculate Brenda as well, because that was what was missing in the trial. He couldn't do that. So I think this is an avenue for them to do what I always wanted to do.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. And when it comes to the lawsuits and stuff, I know that some people are of the opinion that the insurance would have paid the damages for Steven, whatever the millions he would have gotten. Actually, it doesn't work that way. And if you guys have followed Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard lawsuit, that was a civil lawsuit as well. The insurance company did not cover it either on Amber's part because it was done with maliciousness.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. It certainly wasn't looking good for Kacerik. This appeared all the hallmarks of a personal vendetta, right? A personal vendetta. And it's very, very interesting. I've read a lot of the depositions we have here on Foul Play. It was not going to be good. It was not going to be good for the sheriff. It wasn't going to be good for the district attorney. Mark Rohrer knew it. He absolutely knew what the consequences were going to be. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, Stephen Avery decides to murder Teresa Horbach for reasons unknown. And the civil lawsuit basically disappeared. Correct.
Plus, Kacerik would have, I'm sorry.
No.
Plus, Kacerik would have gone home or retired, early or not, with a stain on his reputation.
Career. Yep. 100%.
Nobody wants to do that. Yeah.
No, 100% correct. And if you can remember in Making a Murderer, guys, before we continue, remember this when the reporters went up to Kacerik and before the cameras and the reporter spoke to him, he had a massive smile on his face. He goes, oh, yeah, I've received hundreds of calls. And it was chilling what he said. He goes, we thought we had the right man. It was just an honest mistake.
Yeah,
my God,
right.
They destroyed Stephen and everything about Stephen and his family. These guys washed their hands like Pontius Pilate. It was only an honest mistake because he got the backing of the Attorney General, Peg Lockenschlatter. They had nothing to fear. It was a complete, utter whitewash.
Doc and everyone, to me, it goes a little deeper because if they did it to Stephen with such practice and greased wheels, who else that we've never heard about? Remember the guy that wrote the letter? There's a letter out there talking about the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department and what they did to him. And then there was some more information there too. That was a really interesting letter. So they were very practiced, apparently, at doing whatever they wanted. This goes to not calling a coroner. Calumet County did the same thing. We don't need to even talk about it. We found human bones here, but we don't need to involve a coroner here. We'll just handle it ourselves. And to me, this opens up, again, another area. But I want to speak one more time about your question about the lawsuit and why they had to downplay it. They had to. There's just no way around it. Because, this middle ground between 85, the lawsuit that gets filed, Stephen getting freed in 2003, Peg whitewashes everything, and Stephen says, you know what, screw you.
Yeah.
I demand some kind of justice here, despite whatever shortcomings he has personally that we have vehemently said we don't agree with it at all.
Correct.
This is not about that. This is about, law and doing the rule of law and doing the right thing. He files a lawsuit in October 2004. I'm certain that the target went right square on his forehead and on his back at that point in time. Was there an underlying tone under the kind of under the ground, under the dirt, that they were going to do something to retaliate? I don't know, but it sure as hell seems that way because the convenience of how everything happened, moving towards September, October of 2005, and then suddenly the day before Kacerik has to testify in his deposition, which he tried to get out of, so did Bogle. We've got the documents. Cherie got them for us. He tries to get out of it. Kacerik was due to testify. Stephen gets arrested for felon in possession of a firearm.
Correct.
It's ludicrous.
Yep. Correct. Yep. It's not good. It's not good at all. Does anyone have any other comments regarding the civil lawsuit? Are we all good? Do we have any questions regarding that civil lawsuit in chat?
You know, I haven't been following Rhonda or one of the mods. Have you guys been kind of watching here?
I don't really see any. I just see some people commenting. Not really any specific comments or questions about the lawsuit.
Okay. Can we put up the next slide, Doc?
Yeah, yes, please. Yes, please. Let's finish this so we can start your section. So then they talked about the search of the garage, right? Now, as you know, the believe from what I've read, they searched the garage 4 times from top to bottom. Now, it's true, Stephen Avery's garage was a mess. Now, you got to understand that when they first searched Stephen's garage, they had no idea about Brendan Dassey and what Brendan was about to tell the investigators, Fassbender and Wiegert, months down the track. So I believe that the garage was searched 4 times. It was also luminol treated, and there's a video of a walkthrough on November the 6th, in which you can see that there were chalk marks on the ground. The floor had been sprayed with luminol, which detects the presence of blood, etc., etc. All of that had been done. At that stage, they found shell casings, I think 10 or 11 shell casings. They found what looked like to be a red substance on the ground. And so the question is, they found shell casings, they found red stains, they never found any bullets, they never found item FL, item FK. So what conclusions, here's the question to the panel and people in chat, what conclusions did the investigators come up with after they searched Stephen's garage? Who would like to go first? What did they conclude?
When? At the time or 5 months later?
No. At the time, not 5 months later in March. What did they conclude pre-Brendan Dassey? Jack 61.
Yeah, I can't answer that one. I'll pass that one off to someone else, because as far as I know, they didn't find anything. So.
Yep, correct. Who would like to have an answer? Who would like to have a go? And Neverly.
Well, they didn't find anything, did they?
No.
They found some.
Well, they picked up the shell casings.
Yeah.
But they didn't find any blood. Well, they may have found blood that maybe belonged to Stephen, but they didn't find anything.
They found red stains on the floor. Red stains.
Yes, that's
red
right.
Stain. Correct. Now, would you be surprised? Be honest. This is rural Wisconsin. I think they took out like about 20 or 30 guns from the Avery salvage yard and a ton of ammunition, right?
Yeah.
They fire their weapons all the time. Are you surprised to find shell casings in a garage?
No.
In rural Wisconsin?
No, not at all.
So how did those shell casings become later a shooting scenario involving Stephen shooting Teresa Horbach 10 or 11 times?
Especially after, them talking to Roland Johnson, and he told them he shot at least a brick of
3,000 rounds.
3,000 rounds in and around the salvage yard at, Gophers or whatever the hell, That's just what they do. They get done with something. Hey, let's get the gun out and do some target practice or whatever. Yep. I'm telling you, that happens. I lived in rural Tennessee, and it happens there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why it was almost crucial for the jurors to make a little visit, to pay a visit to the salvage yard, to see first of all, to see the distances, how small Stephen's trailer was, and the proximity of the gas tank, how small the burning area was, where Barb's house was, all of this. And they would have seen the garage, which was so packed with stuff. Right? Yeah.
Correct.
And as Kathleen Zellner said, they would have seen all these shell casings on the floor and would have understood more what's going on a salvage yard or in Wisconsin, rural Wisconsin. That is not like all of a sudden you see one shell case or 10, you see thousands of them.
Correct, 100% correct. So it's interesting that the first time or all the times that they searched the garage, they found nothing of significance that they could pinpoint to what happened to Teresa Hallbach, right? But it's very interesting how after Brendan Dassey spoke to Fassbender and Wiegert, and you had, I believe he was coerced to talk about the shooting scenario because Brendan Dassey had no idea. All of a sudden, what did King Kratz say during the press conference? He goes, now we know what we're looking for, which is a real worry because the investigators searched that garage 4 times and they concluded nothing nefarious took place. The only blood which they found belonged to Stephen. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but didn't they also take off the back door, the Suzuki door?
Yes, they did.
Suzuki. They actually took it off.
Yeah,
off
they took it with them. They did.
Yep. And isn't it interesting, guys? In the walkthrough video of November the 6th, the detectives are saying, "Oh, be careful, don't step on the blood," and "Oh, it looks like bloody fingerprint." These guys were giving a running narrative with no evidence,
Nothing.
no proof. They were giving a running narrative of what had taken place. Now,
well, also, Doc, you talked about the photos. Had this chalk outline on the garage floor, and it was nothing there. It was crazy. And they, but this is a selling point. The police officers, they're going in, they're circling and doing all this to try to act like something was found, and they didn't find shit. Nothing.
Correct. And here's the problem when you use luminol in a garage. It's going to light up, right? Because luminol cross-reacts with metal, with motor oil, and potentially even if it detects blood, it could also be blood from an animal, right? It's not a definitive test. It's a presumptive test. So if you're spraying all this luminol and it luminesces, right, you're going, oh my God, what the hell is this? So when they did all the swabbing, there was not one swab that came back positive for Teresa Hallbach. The only DNA that they found, the only blood that they found in that garage is Stephen Avery. Now, these guys work with metal and car parts all the time. And I believe that when they searched the body of Chuck, Stephen, Earl, they all had cuts because they work with transmissions,
of course.
They work with tools, they work out with torches that can cause burn marks. But notice how they have to now invent a narrative that never took place. That's why Item FL later down the track became so crucial in March until Chris Palahniuk years later debunked it as rubbish. That is why state advocates have to hold on to Item FL at all costs. Because
I'm sorry, Doc. I got to interrupt you a little bit here because I'm not again, we went through this before. I'm gonna beat this dead horse one more time. Item FL was one mistake after another by Sherry Culhane. And I'm not a scientist. This is the stuff that I picked up from you and reading on my own. It was a series of mistakes, and they had to, and it was allowed in court. I can't believe it.
Correct.
Can you imagine this in today's world? Defense lawyers would kill that.
The Neverly will back me up on this. We watched the trial, the Murdoch trial. 2 attorneys took apart the state's forensic scientists to pieces. Correct, Neverly?
Yes.
They were so hypercritical in the way the laboratory did all their tests, their forensic tests, the DNA processing, the crime scene analysis. They ripped it to shreds.
They made such a big deal of the state not putting the cell phone that they found, Maggie's cell phone, in the Faraday bag.
In the Faraday bag, a whole lot. If those two attorneys were representing Stephen, Culhane, and I'm telling you now, Eisenberg would have run out of the court crying, because they would have ripped them a new one on their procedures and lack of proper scientific process. That's why in the Murdoch trial, remember the DNA analyst read out all the percentages of the DNA matches. Remember when she said quintillion, zentillion? You're thinking to yourself, come on, lady, what the hell? You just say there's a match. All she had to say was, because they were terrified they were going to get ripped to pieces. Question: why did Cherie Culhane get away with so much garbage that no one else can? Right?
She's a safe player.
And so hence, that's why I asked the question, what did the investigators conclude when they went in the garage 4 times? What was their conclusion? Guys, who would like to answer? What did they conclude?
They had to conclude that nothing happened in there.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Anybody else? We're all good? We're all good? Right. Okay. So it's clear. In Stephen Avery's trailer, the only thing that they found as a link to Teresa Horbach was the key. And the key was incredibly dodgy and represented a massive problem to be presented in court. Jack 61, and guys, back me up. But remember in Ken Kratz's closing remarks where he said, can you set aside the key? The key's not important.
That's right. You know, I beat that dead horse a bunch of times too, but let's beat it one more time. He's already put 3 officers up, Kucharski, Lincoln, Colburn, talking about how the key was found. And he knows how stupid and how horrible it looks. He said it in cam. He already knew. And Dean and Jerry did a pretty good job of, hammering on this. But why would he put these 3 officers up? Then he's looking at it. I'm sure he's probably getting feedback from the jury, from people and sitting back in the audience listening. This looks really bad. And he says to the jury in his closing, "Hey, can't we just set this key aside?"
We set the key aside. And in actual fact, isn't it incredible, guys, that the person who introduced the concept of planting by law enforcement is Kratz himself?
That's right. He did.
Kratz himself put aside the key. In the grand scheme of things, the key's not important. And you're thinking, oh, wait a minute. Right? And what do you think? What do you think Stephen and his defense attorneys have been arguing? If you have one dodgy piece of forensic evidence, you can't trust any of them. That's the main problem. All right, guys.
And that's the case. That's case integrity, and that's another big point that I always had a problem with, and that was watching Man, because I didn't feel sure. I felt shaky about it, despite whatever biases that they didn't include or did include. I still felt shaky, and then of course when we got the paperwork, it was worse than what I ever thought.
Correct. And someone made the comment that they even tried to link the receipt and the Auto Trader magazine as to imply that Teresa Horbach was in Stephen's trailer.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, Kratz made a point to confirm that with Fassbender.
That's correct.
Because nothing was tying her to that place.
Correct. 100% correct. Awesome. All right, guys, unless there are any comments, can we go on with the next slide? We're nearly done. Sorry, Jack 61, that we're taking so long.
Oh, no, that's fine, Doc. I mean, I haven't went all the way through episode 6 yet, so if we get to it, I mean, we can do some of it if you want. Okay.
Yeah. You take over. Episode 6 is all yours, good buddy. All right, so this is truly amazing, right? In Cam, in episode 5, they actually showed Brenda driving along to go and see a Groffy. Now, Groffy, as you can see here in the picture, he's the person who went to the crime lab. I believe it was on the morning of November the 6th, which was a Sunday.
And everybody, please remember, he testified that he wasn't called until 10:30-ish a.m., somewhere around that time frame. Is what he testified to. And so it wasn't like he showed up at 6 o'clock or whenever Harrington went in.
Yep.
And we don't know exactly what time he actually got to the crime lab. Sorry, Doc.
No, not at all. But when Groffy went to the crime lab, he found the driver's side door open. So we know that allegedly all the doors were checked at the Avery salvage yard of the RAV4, and they were all closed. So we have a report that a locksmith was called to open up the RAV4. When Groffy came along, his role was to take photographs of the blood stains which are present in the RAV4. And I think he took 5 or 6 pictures. Unbelievable when we read that he was also asked to do presumptive testing of the blood. They didn't wait for Culhane or the crime lab to show up. Groffy went in. He said that he all got suited up. And not only did he take photographs, which, remember, these pictures could have easily been taken at the Avery salvage yard. Open up a door, go in with a suit, spend 5 minutes, take pictures, done. Nope, these were done in the crime lab. Groffy did 2 presumptive tests, one on the ignition, and you can see the picture here, and one in the back. And the presumptive tests confirm the presence of blood. The presence of blood was also backed up by Brutus alerting at the back of the RAV. And Brutus is he detects human decomposition like blood. Now, here's the question. A lot of debate has been written about that blood stain on the ignition. So here's the question. How did Stephen's blood get inside the RAV? Right? Because that's the question. That's the number one, in my opinion, that's the number one piece of forensic evidence that is damning towards Stephen. Right? Now, let me just quickly say, there's no question in my mind, and I've even done a presentation on this, the blood doesn't have EDTA, which means it didn't come from the purple top tube. Forget it, right? Lenk, Colburn, no police officer took a purple top tube and planted blood. Forget it. There's no EDTA, despite all the complications of and Neverly's boyfriend, Dr. LeBeau. There's no EDTA. Secondly, what I believe to be the most damning piece of evidence is the DNA methylation analysis that was done on that blood. The DNA methylation analysis confirmed that the age of the blood was actually from someone 9 years older than Stephen, right? Because there is plus or minus, there are error bars when you do DNA methylation analysis, but it proved that the blood was fresh from someone of Stephen's age, but actually 9 years older, according to the DNA methylation analysis. But here's the important thing. The blood came from the seat cutting. I believe it was on the passenger seat. So the scientists who did the DNA methylation analysis need a certain amount of DNA, nanograms of the DNA, before they can do DNA methylation analysis. The same team did a genomic DNA profile of that blood that came back as Stephen Avery's. So Culhane has got nothing to do with it. It was independently tested by this university team. I did a presentation on it. You can have a look at it. It's on the Foul Play YouTube channel. There's no doubt that blood belongs to Stephen Avery. The other thing is The amount of Stephen's blood in the RAV4 is, if you had a little tube, it's around about 300 microliters, which means less than half a mil. There's a tiny amount of blood, and yes, there's also a blood flake in the car, right? So it's not just all blood drops. So let's go through it because it's very, very important. You've got one solid drop of blood on the passenger side rear on the door frame. And you can see there's been a drip and it's gone down by gravity, right? There's a drop of blood on the passenger seat. There's a drop of blood on the driver's seat. The CD case is smeared, right? Actually, half of it is smeared with a very thin layer of blood. There's a flake on the ground, which is very, very interesting because normally you don't bleed flakes. And also there's that weird drop of blood on the near the ignition switch. We've discussed it, and we're not going to discuss it here because I want to get on with episode 6. But the blood distribution pattern in the RAV4, in my opinion, does not represent someone who is actively bleeding from their finger. Because if you're actively bleeding, you're constantly dropping blood. And if you notice, no investigator found any of Stephen's blood or DNA on the door handles or outside the RAV or on the RAV. And of course, we've got the controversial A23. So the thing is, how did Stephen's blood get in the RAV, right? And there's been a lot of fruitful discussion about how that blood got into the RAV. If you can solve that, you're halfway into cracking the case. Now, Stephen never said, I was in that RAV4. Bobby Dassey never said he was in that RAV4. The only person who said he was in that RAV4 was Brendan Dassey. The problem is there is no DNA or blood pertaining to Brendan Dassey, right?
No.
So the question is, how did a tiny 6 drops, about 300 microliters, less than half a mil of Stephen's blood get inside Teresa's RAV4? I can see 2 ways. One, Stephen did it. Stephen was in the RAV4 and bled in the RAV4. That's one way. The second way, someone planted the blood. And I remember having a ton of conversations with a lot of people saying, oh no, but the blood, it coagulates, it dries out. How are you going to plant blood? This, you can't. You've got to do it within 8 to 10 minutes. It's impossible. The sink hypothesis is all bullshit. It can't happen. The problem is, I think we overthought this. We've been overthinking it for too long. And then I thought of David Cofford, right, guys? David Cofford planted a drop of blood from a victim in Nebraska, and he was able to plant that blood in a car, which only he detected. So wait a minute. The victim's blood was coagulated. It would have dried. So how was David Cofford able to plant it? And the answer is, you do it quick and dirty. You're not gonna have liquefied blood like perfect in a purple top tube. Who cares? Add an aqueous solution to it, get it wet, and plant it. That's all you got to do. Because think about this. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's semi-coagulated, who cares? 2 properties. It's red, so hence it'll react with phenolphthalein because you got the heme in the hemoglobin. And secondly, you produce DNA from it. Why? Because it's got white blood cells. So who cares if the blood is not perfect? Who cares if you rehydrate it from dried blood? Who cares? It's quick, dirty, and you could tell that it appears that if the blood was planted, and I've got no proof that it was, if the blood was planted, someone likely came in from the back door, and as they were coming in, probably with a little pipette, which you can get, have you ever seen those little eye droplets that you get with medicine, with your medicine? That's all you need. No fancy equipment. Just get it wet. It's still red. It's still semi-liquefied, and just drop it in. And so think about this. This disturbed Kratz so much that he had to conclude in his book, Stephen cut his finger after he drove the RAV to the pit, because he couldn't work out how on God's earth do you cut yourself, actively bleed from your finger, and drive a vehicle with a steering wheel, brakes, and gear shift and not leave any blood, and get in and outside of the RAV and leave no blood, leave no prints, leave no DNA, and no cadaver dog detects any sign of blood around Stephen's trailer, nor where Teresa had parked her RAV4, nor around the van that Teresa Hallbach photographed. It doesn't look right. It looks planted. And remember, guys, my final point. Remember, they had Stephen's Pontiac Grand Dam, which he was actively bleeding. And what could you tell about the droplets of the blood? They were close. They were close together, and there was blood on the gear shift. Exactly what you would expect. And that's why Kratz had to abandon the hypothesis, oh, jeepers, when Stephen attacked Teresa Hallbach or was doing the chopping or whatever, the dismemberment, he cut himself, he was bleeding. No, he had to abandon it, because how on God's earth do you drive a RAV4 from where Teresa had parked it all the way to the pit, handling the steering wheel, the brakes, the gear shift lever, the doors, and leave no blood? And final comment, there's no mixture of blood between Stephen and Teresa anywhere. Guys, what's going on?
For me, everyone, a couple of thoughts that I have about the Stephen's blood. But before I get into that just a little bit, I want to talk about the back door, the inside back door of the cargo door, and what was on there, and was basically ignored.
Yes.
Right, Doc? It was. I mean, if you look at it in the overall, it was actually completely ignored. And that's Teresa's blood. She got bashed in the head, in my opinion, right there at that back door. Something happened right there, and it was complete. Yeah, and I just don't think Dean and Jerry explored that the way they should have, and really hammered on that fact. But since we were talking about blood, Stephen's blood, I wanted to bring that up as a point of contention here of what they tried to focus on and what they completely ignored. And once the prosecutor does that to me, you're manipulating everything. Anyway, getting into this whole thing about Stephen's blood, these blood drops inside the RAV. Number one, we talked about this, and I think it was a really good point. I don't know if it was Susan. I can't remember who said the comment, but you think about Stephen's cut being on his right hand and going inside that back right passenger door, where this drop of blood was found in the door jamb. Okay, number one, he was bleeding from his right hand. Would there not have been potential blood under that door handle? And apparently there was none. That drop back there, it's got some strange properties too that I can't understand. And then, this whole thing that Kratz has, I think in at least one of his stories, he tried to say that Stephen reached up from the passenger seat up to the ignition, and this kind of explains his pattern of dropping blood in the car and how it's natural. Okay, well, if he was driving the car, why is there no blood drops around the gear shift?
Correct.
Nothing on the steering wheel. There's just so many areas there that where you look at the Grand Am, it looks pretty natural to me where he's dropping blood, right?
Yep. Also in his
350.
350.
Yep.
You can see all the drops.
That's
On
right.
he was whatever happened there, he was profusely bleeding, right?
Right.
The cut on his finger was actually quite deep, but when they photographed it, I think it was on November, forgot the actual day when they took him to the hospital to photograph.
November 9th.
On the 9th, the wound had scabbed over quite nicely. And so their insinuation was that Stephen's blood got in the RAV4 because he was actively bleeding from his finger. But
that's right.
Even if Stephen didn't have a cut and there was blood, they would have still come up with the hypothesis that Teresa had punched Stephen, made him bleed on the nose, and hence
something.
That's the source of blood. So the finger, the blood coming from the finger, the cut finger, is just a matter of convenience, right?
Yes.
Oh my God, he's got a cut. That's where the blood came from, right?
It gets worse though for me, Doc, because again, we're trying to explain. So allegedly, after all this, whatever allegedly went on, him and Brendan go park the RAV up there on the ridge, and Stephen goes under the hood of the RAV and leaves this massive amount of, touch DNA.
Touch DNA, correct.
On the latch. There's no other touch DNA, and they swabbed many areas under that hood, and there was nothing there. I'm talking about the prop arm, which he would have had to have used if he was going to take the battery out. We're talking about battery cables were swabbed, the battery was swabbed, and they didn't find anything.
And no blood.
No blood. So this brings up another problem. Now, for me personally, this is just I can't prove it, but you've said it, others have said it. Sherry Culhane controlled every swab in the case.
Correct.
Boom. To me, that's the end of it right there. Sherry Culhane controlled every swab. So, to me, there was whatever. I can't prove it. This is an alleged event that it's my opinion. I'm not claiming she did it, but that's what I believe. She controlled every swab, and for her, just like that, snap of a finger, she'd do whatever she wanted.
Oh, correct.
She also controlled those cuttings from the seat, Doc.
That's right. She did.
That were sent to the FBI.
That's right.
Correct. The you got to understand, right? When Groffy came in, he had no idea who the blood had belonged to, right? He does a presumptive test. It doesn't tell you whether it's animal blood, human blood. It's just that it's got hemoglobin, heme, and heme has got the heme is the prosthetic group in hemoglobin. It's got a central iron atom, and that's what reacts with the presence of the luminol. But they also do things like phenolphthalein. These are presumptive tests. So when my big problem is this: when Groffy did a presumptive test on that spot, the picture that you just had up near the ignition key. When you take a swab and you add a solution and you dab a spot of blood, you dilute it. And the way you do it is when you have a cotton tip, you touch it and you swipe it. So you get the material on your cotton swab. You then apply your phenolphthalein. If it turns pink, that's presumptive for the presence of blood.
Well, the way he tried to explain that in Cam is like you just stick it on there.
He knew. He goes, I just did a little dabble bullshit.
You're right.
You could actually tell from that spot. If you were to zoom up that picture, Jack 61, and focus, you can see that it's been touched and swiped. No one on this planet leaves a blood spot like that.
That's right.
But here's where it gets really, really bizarre. Culhane said, oh, no. I did a presumptive test on the same spot. And then I took another swab to do my DNA preparation. That means that, see that spot that you put up? It's actually been probed 3 times with a solution, which means that it's been swiped 3 times. It means that you have diluted the blood present, which means that that spot cannot be an in situ image of how the blood looked like. It cannot be. Because you can see it. It's got a spot and it's been pushed up. It's been diluted. Neverly.
Anthony Hills is asking, did Grafi demand Cherie swap A23?
I don't think it was. I think it could have been. Was it Stokey? Was one of the guys that went around the RAV?
I'm pretty sure it was Stocky.
Because Grafi wouldn't have that authority, would he?
No, he's graphics and photography.
He's got nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
No.
So thank you.
What Colhane said was, what we normally do, we walk around the vehicle anti-clockwise and we look for stains. If we find stains, they photograph it. They do, say, fingerprint analysis. Then they take a swab. Colhane never swabbed A23 by her own self. I think it was Storky that said, oh, look, there's some blood over here. I think you better take a swab of it. And the blood was on the actual door handle, and there's a fingerprint on the same door handle. That's the very door handle you must open and close if you're going to put Teresa Horbach in the back of her own RAV. There's one problem. The fingerprint doesn't belong to Stephen, doesn't belong to Brendan. A23, and I've had plenty of arguments on Twitter and X about A23, trust me. Colhane said, I didn't find Stephen Avery's DNA on the back door of the RAV, which means that A23, despite it being a partial profile, had enough genetic information to exclude, right? So when you've got a partial profile and you've got a full profile, if the partial profile has alleles which are different to a full profile, guys, clearly they're not the same. You can exclude, right? The same reasoning was used why the pap smear of Teresa Horbach and item BZ, they couldn't exclude item BZ from Teresa's pap smear. Why? Because it was a 100% match of all the genetic information that came up to the pap smear. You do statistics, it's a 1 in a billion chance that it's not Teresa. But you do statistics, right? Because notice...
Not good enough for me, Doc. 1 in a billion.
Well, that's why I made the comment in Convicting a Murderer, and Brenda mistook what I said. I said, at that time in 2005, from a population statistics, there were 7 people on the planet that had exactly that 7 out of 15 profile. Yeah. The exact same profile. That's not me, that's statistics, right? Population. That's why the FBI now goes, no. We want 20 alleles. And that's why in the murder trial, the DNA analysis was talking about quintillion, zentillion. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, if there's only 8 or 9 billion people on the planet, just stop. Just stop and say, it's no one on this planet that's got that profile. It's unique, right? There you go. Correct.
That's why Kratz said perceptions are what they are.
But Kratz, instead of saying...
Careful not to say.
He said 100% it was Teresa Horbach, and you can't say that because it's a partial profile. Interesting.
Of what?
Item BZ. So put it this way. If item BZ had 1 or 2 alleles that were different to Teresa Horbach's pap smear, item BZ is not Teresa Horbach. You understand? Because the alleles are different. It's from another individual, right? So when you look at A23, even if it's a partial profile, you compare the alleles of A23 with all the known full profiles. If A23 has got different alleles to Stephen, to Brendan, to Teresa, it's not them.
Dr. Silkman,
Yep.
Did they just, do you want to finish
Yeah, I'm
what
done.
you were saying? Oh, okay. So Scooby, I said that it really bothers me that they made a point of calling the pap smear an intimate sample, which is weird. It's just weird. The whole world calls it a pap smear or Papa Nicolau test, right? The guy who invented it, the scientist. Anyways,
Correct.
so it really bothers me. Why do they go out of their way to call it the intimate sample? What's a big deal? You know what I mean? It's medical terminology. We call it as it is. Scooby says, excuse me, she says, we still don't know if they had a full pap smear profile because of unclear language in reports saying partial pap profile.
That was a
And she
mistake.
says,
That was a mistake.
sometimes those pap smears don't yield a good profile. I have a paper on that. So did she only have a partial profile, or is
No.
that another typo?
It was a typo. She made an error in her report. The pap
How do we
smear
know that though?
Well, because the pap smear gave a 15 out of 15 allele match, right? She got a full profile.
So it's a
smear.
full profile. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Cohen made a mistake, an error in her report. And of course, as soon as you make an error like that, boom, it's all over.
Well, it is a big error. It is a big error. Yeah.
Correct. So it's
like
interesting.
Inculpate and exculpate and so forth.
Correct. Yeah. Include and exclude. Oh, don't worry. I've had some very interesting debates on Twitter about it. But it's quite clear. You're never going to get anything more inculpatory if A23 belongs to Stephen. Guys, would you agree? If that blood on the back door latch belonged to Stephen, he's done like a dinner.
Oh, it's done. It's over.
No, there is no coming back from that. Stephen can argue till the cows come home because then you're going, wait a minute.
Why? If they planted it inside, why not put some on the back door?
Well, remember, if you're a planter, you want to get inside the vehicle as quickly and out of the vehicle as possible. Plus, if there's only 300 microliters, a tiny amount of blood, if you put blood outside, what can't you control?
The weather.
Yep, you got it. You can't control the weather. Why do you think the RAV4 was locked? To make sure that nobody got in.
Exactly.
So you're going to plant blood, you don't put it on the outside, because if it rains and washes away all the forensic evidence, you're going,
you're screwed.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
But if you know about cars, and I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. If you know about cars, you know how to get in a car and out of a car easily. If you're a planter, you don't want to stay in that car very long, because if you go in the vehicle, potentially you can leave your own DNA in that car.
And you're screwed.
If you're a planter, you go in and put the blood quick, fast, 1 minute, not even, you're out. And what's interesting is I reckon any residual blood that was left was placed on the CD case. They emptied it. Do you get it? Because it's smeared. Now, wait a minute. How do you work that one out? So as you're reaching into the vehicle from the back, what you're doing is you're dripping blood. And that will explain the blood on the rear frame, because the individual came in, probably bumped the door, squeezed the little trigger, a drop fell down, reached in, got a couple of drops on the seat, right? And then put it on the ignition. Why do you put it on the ignition? You put on the ignition to indicate that whoever was there drove the vehicle, right? So you're done like a dinner. But if you plant the blood on the outside, there's one problem. You can't control the weather. You can't get, not in Wisconsin. So hence.
But if you put it in both places, Doc,
yes,
you don't have that problem. But the
true.
weather,
That's true.
You still have it inside.
True, but
got a fallback plan. Go ahead, Doc.
But there's one problem. There could have been Stephen's blood on the outside, but it rained.
Yeah.
So
twice. Well, at least was before they got the RAV. Yeah, but
so Susan, you could be well correct. But here's the issue.
But I thought they eliminated Stephen from A23.
Yes, but I'm going on by your hypothesis. If a planter puts some droplets of blood outside, we're not going to know because it rained, and it's a miracle.
But that blood, but it was still there.
A23 was, yes,
yeah,
and it's not Stevens.
So the rain didn't wash it off.
Nope.
Not entirely.
Not entirely correct. But here's the problem. Going by your hypothesis, if someone puts some blood outside, we don't know where it is. But what they should have done is brought Brutus back. Do you get it?
Yep.
After you've taken the car out, bring the cadaver dog back and say, shit, oh, there's some human decomposition here. There's some over there. There's on a branch. Erdl checked, and he said, I couldn't find anything. He couldn't find it.
It's really strange. I mean, because Brutus did hit on the RAV.
On the back of the RAV. On the back of the RAV.
It's because we know that there's blood inside, or there allegedly was. When Brutus hit, that was on the 5th, right? Afternoon of the 5th?
Correct. Afternoon of the 5th. Correct.
So the assumption is that Brutus was detecting decomposition inside the RAV because they didn't say anything about blood being on that back door on the outside. Yeah, apparently no one saw it. Nothing.
No one saw it. No. But I tried to explain it in which the rain may have diluted it, and then when it dried up, people could visually see it. Do you understand? Like, know, when you've got a drop of blood and you add water, you dilute the red. But when it dries, when it desiccates, then you can see where the blood is. Because someone said, oh, but wait, no one noted it at the Avery salvage yard. How did it get there in the crime lab? And if you're a planter, you're not going to plant another person's blood on the back of the RAV. You'll plant Stevens, right? So when Colhane isolated A23, and she got a partial profile, according to Colhane, she said, I didn't find Stevens' DNA anywhere in the back of the RAV in terms of the door, because Buting had asked, well, what's going on with A23? And interestingly, in Brendan Dassey's trial, she didn't, partial profile, was genetically uninformed, didn't mention it at all. But Buting in Stevens' trial said, did you have Brendan Dassey's profile? Yes. Did you find his DNA anywhere? No. But because Colhane never said, I excluded Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, and Teresa Horbach from A23, it's now open for interpretation. That's the argument that I've been having. It's open for interpretation. But I said, wait a minute. Here's your two suspects, your primary suspects, Stephen and Brendan. If there was
I interjected myself into that argument too, Doc. Oh, my God.
If there was any hint that the alleles were the same, she would have said, I could not exclude them.
And Kratz would have been all over it.
All over it. He would have been all over it. It would have made the newspapers. Because think about it. What did they say? Brendan Dassey said, when we killed Teresa Horbach, we put it in the back of a RAV, then took it out of the RAV. So in order to do that, you need to open and close the door. So if you find their prints, their blood, their DNA on the back door, they're done. Done.
What if it was a mixture, and it was someone that should not have been there, in there?
We don't have the profile.
Just discounted it.
We don't have the profile, so I can't make any comments.
We don't know.
We do not know. Correct. We do not know.
No.
Maybe,
and for the record,
maybe the planter's DNA got in. Maybe it was Stephen's blood. And
correct me if I'm
DNA.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Colhane never published her results of A23. I'm talking about her.
Yep.
You you have to wonder why that is, especially with Kratz opening. And he said that this blood on the back door here on the left at the door handle, I'll zoom in here in a second, belonged to Avery. It was Avery's. A23 was Avery's, and that had to get corrected.
Correct. Culhane had to actually correct Kratz during the trial because Ken Kratz made a big mistake. That's not Stephen's DNA. That's not Stephen's fingerprints. It's not his blood. So put it this way. The reason why Culhane never published the sequence is because I would have taken 3 seconds to either exclude or include Stephen or any of the Averys, any of the Dassies. Would have taken 3 seconds to do it. So by not publishing the sequence, you're not committed to an answer, correct? So you leave it up in the air. So A23 is extremely interesting. So the problem is, how did Stephen's blood get in the car? How did it get in the RAV? To me, it doesn't look like a normal distribution of blood from someone who's actively bleeding. To me, even Kathleen Zellner's blood expert said there's nothing connecting the dots. Right?
I'm being accusatory, Doc, but I think Culhane helped the case. That's my belief. I'm not asking anyone to follow me down that path, but that's what I believe.
Yep. I do believe. I've got no proof. I've got no evidence. I know that Cherie Culhane made multiple mistakes with her DNA forensics. But, you know, you've got to have proof. You've got to have proof if you're going to point a finger at somebody. But, yeah, in order to carry this out successfully, you need someone on the inside. Yep, definitely.
By the way, guys, you guys didn't notice. I want to know where my amygdala is. Somebody hijacked it. It's gone.
Someone hijacked it.
Yeah.
Correct. Look, Jack 61, we've got just a couple of more slides. I'm happy that we finish the podcast after we do this. And when you're ready, we can do episode 6.
You know, again, like I put in that little private chat, I've got roughly 30 or so slides, whatever. I've got my notes. My presentation is not in a collage type, but, you know, we can go through, at least we can start it if you guys want, or we can end this one here and do episode 6. I'm glad to start it, but I'm telling you, when I think I can get through probably episode 6 in one podcast. So if you guys want to do a solo on that, I'm fine with that too. I'm gonna leave it up to the group and the live chatters, whatever they want to do. I'm good to go. I'll put up the next slide though, Doc, and everybody can be thinking about it.
Let's go for it. Yeah. Now this one's only a quick one. I wish Duke was here. They talked about the Yonder burn barrels, but jeepers, they literally only spent about a minute or so on the burn barrels. Allegedly, there were 4 burn barrels, and they were taken away. And as you can see in the photo on the bottom right-hand side, the contents were put in tarps. And my understanding is that there was some funny, unusual business going on with the burn barrels being taken off the property, returning back on the property. There's a bit of controversy. But here's the question to the panel. What did Brutus alert to on the night of November the 5th?
That's the burn barrel number 4.
Yep. In fact, Brutus alerted on 2 burn barrels. Do we know what he alerted to?
No, I don't think specifically, but he detected some kind of he detected some kind of decomposition.
Correct. We got no idea.
For all we know, it could have been a tampon.
It could well be. Could well have been. Yep, 100% correct. So again, this demonstrates the problem that if the forensic evidence is not immediately photographed, if it's not processed judiciously, and I can't work out the burn barrels. It's very interesting that those 2 attorneys are having a lot of problems understanding the burn barrels. On the defense diaries, they're having troubles trying to sort out the burn barrels. And then there's this sort of like shell game going on with the burn barrel, especially the burn barrel at the Redonce deer camp, right? There's a lot of controversy about that. But my final comment, guys, is that later on, much later on, I think it was Pevito, I think, or Sturdivant, and Ertel, when they were sorting through the debris of the burn barrel, in Yonder burn barrel number 2, I think it was, they found the cut, burnt human remains, human bone fragments, which is very, very interesting. So
yeah, they knew early on that there was cut and burnt fragments. They knew it very early.
Yep, correct.
Which is why they were looking for a hacksaw blade, which they found and didn't bother to take. I still don't understand that at all.
Correct. 100% correct. Guys, does anyone on the panel or in chat have any comments about the burn barrels? Unfortunately, they didn't spend much time in episode 5 talking about the burn barrels. Do we have any
I
comments?
cannot see any.
Neverly.
I cannot see any comments.
We're all good?
Yeah, except that Bethany, a little bit a while ago, she said, in fact, Kratz tried to claim that 823 was Stevens and Strang caught it in court.
Correct.
That's always good to know.
I'll tell you right now, hadn't Kratz made an error, you never would have heard about 823. You never would have heard about it. And by a miracle of God, Cherie Cohane was forced to talk about 823. And then, of course, I checked out 823 in Cohane's reports. And what is very interesting is that 823 is almost hidden in the reports. And 823 is mentioned not in one report, but in multiple reports. And in her final report, she goes, I didn't get enough genetic information. It was uninformative. I couldn't talk about it. Right? But in the trial, she had to correct Kratz by saying, I never found Stephen DNA on that swab or on the back of the RAV4.
Yep. And if anyone thinks that if there had been anything that he could have connected to H23, he would have been all over it and would have never let it go.
Never let it go. No, that's very, very powerful inculpatory evidence. Your number one suspect with his prints and his blood on the back door handle. That would have been very, very devastating. But as it is, there are 8 sets of prints that they found on the RAV. They don't know who it belongs to. And Fallon, remember Fallon? Oh, do you have Teresa Hallbach's fingerprints? No. Could it possibly be Teresa's? Could be. So therefore, they dismissed it.
And didn't run any of them, and didn't run any of them through APIS. They were only compared to those people that were on the yard that they took prints and palm prints from.
What a bastardly question. Do you have the fingerprints? No. Well, could it be? Well, everything is possible.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. So no, they didn't have, my understanding, they never had Teresa Hallbach's fingerprints, and that was it. All right, guys, if we don't have any more, we could do our last slide.
Woohoo, here we go.
Here we go. Now, this one here, oh boy. Now, I have a lot of problems with this one. Right towards the end, you know how they always do that sort of dramatic finish when Ken Kratz, and I'm sorry to use crude language, talked about the discovery of the key as basically, guys, you've just fucked up my case. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, how can this possibly be? And the answer is, how are you going to convince anybody that that key was not planted? Because as we talked about before, the narrative made no sense whatsoever. And here's what's damning, right? Fassbender in CAM episode 5 said, we had to do one more search. And why did they go in there? To grab Stephen's porn collection, right? And remember how Colburn rolled up his eyes And he even made the comment, he even had his ex-wife porn pictures still. They had to include that in convicting a murderer. And they even had to show poor Jody semi-naked here. I'm thinking to myself, what the hell has that got to do with the murder investigation?
Exactly. What's the relevance?
None. Zero.
That's Laurie. Why bring Laurie in?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
From 30 years ago.
There was no reason, rhyme, or anything to bring that woman into this whole scenario. You know what I mean? Yeah, they were talking about Stephen's past. Yes, she was married to Stephen, but that is in the past. She's moved on. She's got a different life. You know what I mean? She's got on with things, and then these people are doing this. What you know? What for? You know what I mean?
Correct. Well, here's the question, right? One, why did they have the need to go collect Stephen's porn collection? And secondly, does anyone believe the story of the key and what happened to it? The fact that they had to jam in the folders so hard that it broke the cabinet at the back, and the key was able to secrete itself around the corner and land in that position. So,
defying gravity.
Yes. So my question is, was there a necessity to go in one last time just in case to grab Stephen's porn collection, which Colburn said they weren't even impressed by it?
Well, remember what Fassbender said.
Yeah.
And I'll let you talk. This is just a very short thing, Everly. Remember what Fassbender said. I sent them in to search everything. And then Colburn says a little bit later, we went in specifically to look for the porn. That's in cam. Go ahead, Everly.
Well, Yoga, our friend James Crane, or Yoga for the Ageless, he says it was a cover for finding the key. So they had to deflect, right? And focus like, hey, look over here, while we do the key. But I'm going to repeat it again. In my humble opinion, Serbian opinion, it was Kucharski that was supposed to see the stupid key, and he missed it.
Yes, he was.
So then they had to panic. And
without doubt, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, if I could just ask a general question, would you regard the magazines, I think he had a couple of Playboys, would you regard that as being very offensive pornography, worthy of being collected?
No, not in the grand scheme of things. They were legally bought. They were legally sold at probably some convenience store around the area that, probably I'm going to say half the male population, maybe even some women, would buy. It wasn't smut. It wasn't underground stuff that we know goes on. This was a legal publication of various types of soft and hardcore porn,
So do you think that final search on November the 8th, that day, the go to collect Stephen Avery's porn collection was just simply a cover story because the key was there? They had to find the key.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we can make that argument, Alice.
Yeah. I that. I mean, when am I ever lost for words?
Don't be a fan. Don't be a fan. Don't be a fanny.
But that collection of magazines that Stephen had, like Jack says, the most population, not just of Wisconsin, but the friggin' world, had their magazines, and they were like JD put it in chat. They used to be called the top shelf titties because they were always on the top shelf out of each of the youngsters so that they couldn't look at them and everything like that. But any male teenager, whatever. The teenagers would go in and steal these books for their dad, for crying out loud.
That's correct.
You know what I mean? So they were nothing. And the only reason why Fassbender says, oh, I had to send them in for just one more thorough search, was so that they could plant that key. Like I said, we wouldn't be sitting here talking today if that key was found on day 1 or day 2 of the searches that was done. It's not like it's a 65-room mansion that Stephen was living in. You know, that key would have easily have been found. And if you looked at that cabinet when searching that room and seen that that back was broken, you would have had a look to see why that back was broken. You know what I mean? So that search warrant is a load of bullshit, and it was only an excuse for them to get in to plant that key. That's been my opinion for the beginning, and it'll be my opinion until the end, until somebody else can tell me different.
Yeah, good point. Good point. It does look suspicious. I mean, the story that they came up with about that key, and then the fact that Colburn wrote a letter to his boss saying, no, the key wasn't there, it was hidden behind the cabinet. And you think to yourself, wait a minute, how can that possibly be? You just changed the narrative. But not only that, what was disturbing was that we see photographs of items on the top of the cabinet that still remain there after all the shaking, rattling, and rolling. And it didn't make any sense whatsoever. Those two attorneys, the defense attorneys that the podcast I listened to, saying, hey, if that had been the case, all of that material would have been on the ground and photographed as it was, right? So something doesn't seem right. Now, remember, these guys, they went in there on, I think there was a cursory look by Remaker and Lenk on the 4th. Sure, they're not going to start pulling cupboards apart and stuff like that. But the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, nothing. Then all of a sudden, the key pops up. That's highly suspicious, which then begs the question, where did they get this key from? And how did it get to that position on the ground? Right?
Yeah.
And
how does it not have blood on it?
Oh, correct.
Yeah, well, I mean, remember, Doc, there was a lot of suspicion about that key is apparently sitting on the bunker in Teresa's flat when they're interviewing Scott Blowdorn. You know, people say, I mean, it does. I mean, the blue bit for the clippy bit of the lanyard and that, I mean, yeah, it does. But, I mean, anyway, that could have been anything, you know, sitting on that bunker, you know. But when I first seen it and that, and I was like, oh, that could have been the spare key. They could have got the spare key for him. You know, because Teresa could have had it in a drawer or something like that in the flat, you know, and with him being the roommate, he would know. And if the police go and they've went, oh, look, we found the car, it's locked, do you happen to have a key? And he's took the key out the drawer and put it in the bunker and went, there you go. You know, it's a possibility, but it's also that it could just be something completely, entirely different, you know. But
remember how new that key looks. That key is not a used key.
Yeah, no, exactly, Jack. Exactly. That's why I think it's the spare key. It's the emergency key.
It is a spare key.
That you just put in the drawer. You know, you have your normal everyday key that you use that's attached to your house keys or your office keys or whatever, you know, and you're using it every day. I mean, I did it myself not that long ago. I changed what keys I was using, and one of them was brand new. And because I've used it a lot now, the letters on it are, you can see, are starting to fade when we're using the thumb. You can see where it's been going in and out the keyhole and everything like that, markings on the key. You know what I mean? So you can see that it's a used key now. But that key was too pristine. It was too pristine. And for it not to have any of Teresa's DNA on it is impossible. It is impossible.
Well, the disturbing thing is this, right? Why didn't Brutus alert on the key? If there was any signs of blood or tissue or anything like that, the cadaver dog would have alerted to it, right? And the cadaver dog, Brutus, did not alert in Stephen's master bedroom, where allegedly this key was. Now, you remember, Stephen Avery and the whole family, they were off the property from November the 5th, which meant that nobody could have come back and hidden that key or transplanted it into another location, right?
No.
So if that key was there, remember, Brutus, these are very, very, very powerful dogs. If there was just an inkling of a drop of blood there, I'm sure that the dog would have alerted to it. Never did. Now, you might think, oh, come on. Well, the dog alerted to a drop of blood that was on the floor in the bathroom. So it definitely can detect a small volume of blood, but Brutus never detected anything in the master bedroom.
No.
Now, you think about it, right? You shed your skin cells thousands per hour. You're handling this key in your hand. If you're Teresa Hallbach, you're handling this key. Are you trying to tell me that Teresa never left any skin cells to do a swab and then do DNA analysis?
Well, it would have been in her. It probably been in her purse, and there's probably dead skin cells in there as well.
Yeah.
It would have been, to me, that cotton or whatever fabric would have been covered with Teresa's material.
Her DNA should
be
on that key. Her DNA should be there.
Yeah, her DNA should be there. And if Stephen was bleeding the way that they said that he was bleeding, then there should have been blood on that key as well.
Well, Poggle said there was. Poggle said there was. Remember the phone call?
Yes, he did. He did. But
there wasn't, because it's not been documented as blood. It's just Stephen's DNA, isn't it? So
right.
It's bloody ridiculous when it comes to this key, and I don't understand why people don't see that. It's 5 or 6 searches were done in this place before that key was found. You know what I mean? A flyover was done over the property before the motor was found. You know what I mean? That's 2 suspicions that gives reasonable doubt right away. You know what I mean?
It does. And that's exactly what these 2 attorneys have argued. It does bring in suspicion. It does bring in doubt. And also the chain of custody. They were very worried about the chain of custody in all the forensic items that were taken from the property. They're very, very concerned about it.
Well, we've talked about it before, and I don't know. I haven't noticed them get too far into what I'm going to say, but again, when police go into your property, they're generally allowed 1 search. 1. You think about having, I don't care if they were going in for specific items or not. There's a reason why multiple searches are not allowed, because it begins to look like a fishing trip. Correct. So when you get past about 2 searches of what you're looking for, to me, you got a real problem. And that right there is another thing. We walk away from making a murder thinking, well, how many times did they go to these people's houses? I mean, that ain't right. It's not.
No, it's not. And it does bring in an element of doubt. But to me, the ultimate sin was that Culhane used up all the DNA in the testing of the key, which means no one can go back.
Let me see if I can find my little list here, Doc.
Oh, no.
Yep. And this is something I didn't ask Doc to do or ask him about or anything. Let me see if I can find it here, what I put together. I hope I put that.
Okay, while you're searching for that, I just wanted to thank everybody in the chat. Great comments, great questions. You guys are on point. And there's something that I haven't heard so far, which comes from our friend JD. He said, why didn't they say that Teresa dropped her key in his room? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, they say that she was there, for the R word and everything else. And I'm like, Oh yeah, why didn't they say that? Right? If she was there, they could
Well,
have said that.
that's true, but the obvious thing would have been, well, Stephen would have never left something so out in the open, to discover. And
Well, maybe it was under the slippers and he
True.
didn't see. They could have spun it.
True. But isn't it ironical that Fassbender goes, you can't keep on blaming the police. If they wanted something to be found, they would have put it out in the open. And look what we got down here. He got the key out in the open. And Kacharsky never even heard the key fall to the ground. Katie.
Andy's just such a horrible liar. You watch
But a liar nonetheless.
But a liar nonetheless. I mean, so it's just absurd. The most absurd thing of all is the police cleaning up after they search. I mean, how ridiculous is that? I remember in Ma'am when Jody comes home and walks into that bedroom. Did the family turn the bedroom upside down like that? Or was that
no,
a result
of
the
cops?
search?
No
so
chance.
They left the rest of the bedroom destroyed like that, but put the books back in the bookcase. I mean, really?
Chance.
Come on, man.
Well,
when things don't make sense, then
yeah.
Well, that's two separate things. The first search is in the week of November. They didn't really do too much. They couldn't find anything except a few blood spots. They did go in and take a lot of swabs, but then after the Brendan coerced confession, that's when they went back on March 1st after that and March 2nd and really did a lot of damage to the house. So,
yes.
Okay.
Yep. They literally took apart his bedroom. And what did they come up with, Jack 61? How much forensic evidence did they find after taking his bedroom apart?
Nothing.
At zero. Zero. Correct. All right. Well, look, guys, that's all I have for episode 5. I do apologize for taking several hours, but I think we covered it really well, judiciously. And I think we had a really, really good discussion. So my final question is this, to the panel and in chat, just a yes or no. Do you believe that the key was planted, Jack 61?
Absolutely.
Interesting. Just Rhonda. She may have stepped aside. I don't recall. Do you believe the key was planted?
I have no doubt.
Okay. Jack 61, you want to go through what you got?
Yeah. This is, this all came up, several weeks ago when we were watching Convicting Murder, and this whole debate about the testing of Item FL. So here's what I came up with on my own. I promise. I didn't ask anyone. You can ask Doc. We'll both write affidavits. So here's the Sherry Culhane testing of Item FL. Number 1, teaching new lab techs using a live sample. Who the hell does that?
That's a big mistake.
It's a huge one. And especially something that you have such a small amount of DNA to begin with. Number 2, Culhane didn't divide the DNA after washing the Item FL in the buffer.
That's a massive mistake.
Number 3, Culhane didn't measure the sample.
Yep, you need to quantitate.
Number 4, she either had to be unmasked and or ungloved.
Correct, because she contaminated the PCR negative control.
Right, which was what you just covered in number 5.
Yep.
Number 6, under the standard procedure, the testing of Item FL should have ended here. Instead, Wisconsin Crime Lab is allowed to submit a quote-unquote deviation request.
Correct. You can't use it for inclusionary purposes, only for exclusionary purposes.
Which her deviation wanted to change that procedure.
Yeah. Correct.
Number 7, Culhane did submitted the deviation. However, her direct supervisor did not sign it. Culhane testified this was an oversight. Well,
yep. Which means
I I call bullshit, Doc.
Which means the form is illegal. It's just like saying, it's like telling your boss, I'm going on holidays, but not getting your boss to sign your holiday form.
Right.
Yep.
Number 8, we just talked about this a little bit. Deviations are allowed for exclusionary purposes. However, Culhane requested the DNA from Item FL be allowed anyway, despite the contamination event.
Correct.
And number 9, in effect, this would negate the contamination event.
That's correct.
Just ignore it. Just ignore it.
You bypass the control. You bypass the control.
Right. Which this is another big argument I got into with several people, that negative controls are there to detect contamination. That's why they run them, included.
That's
and they're like, no, that's not why they do that. I'm like, dude, just type it in, look in Google. It'll tell you on multiple websites. Number 10, how can we know Item FL was not also contaminated? This is why these procedures exist.
That's correct. And you should never have to ask that question. As soon as your negative control is contaminated, you stop.
You're done.
You're done. You're done like it.
Right.
Correct.
So,
But
look.
You have to have a little common sense, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know the series of events that happened after, she found out she really screwed that up. And if she made a phone call, said to Norm and Fallon and gone, like, guys, I got a real problem here. And then this plan came up about filing for that God would have known about the deviation protocol. We don't know, but in effect, to me, it was such a hoogla of what they did and were allowed to get away with. And I have no scientific background at all, but this was just a pure manipulation for me.
Okay, let me just finish what I start. Katie, do you believe that the key was planted or not planted?
Oh, it was definitely planted, in my opinion.
Okay, interesting. Susan, what about yourself?
I think we killed Susan.
Oh, no.
She was tired. She was tired anyway. So.
Okay, Alice, what about yourself?
Yes, definitely think it was planted. Okay. Definitely, 100%.
Okay, Neverly, what about yourself?
Planted.
Yep.
How about yourself?
Myself, 110% definitely planted. That is extremely suspicious. Did we get much feedback from the audience? What did they say? Planted or not planted?
Planted.
Planted. Interesting. All right, guys, that's that's all I have for this episode. Jack 61, you want to start, or shall we continue next week, or what would you like to do?
Well, Doc, it's already 8:25.
Yeah, we've done 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we've done a couple of hours almost 2.5 hours. So my vote is that we just do a standalone, next week.
Yeah.
And finish out our rebuttal and be done with convicting murder. I know everybody's ready to move on. I know I am, but
Yep.
I don't think we can get too far into this because there's going to be a lot of questions.
Yeah. Yep.
So I vote that I can look at the starred questions and see if there's anything we can answer before we get out here. I think I started this one. This is from Diane. Cam actually manipulated their filming to make it look like AC wasn't involved until after Saturday the 5th, start of episode 5, around 6 minutes in. That's right. But he was involved.
Yep.
And this him being there on the 3rd, and he didn't write a report for 8 months.
For months, correct.
And then he wants to say in that report that Avery denied that Teresa was there. I mean, come on, man. It's ridiculous.
Just crazy. Correct.
Yeah. So next one here is from Clive. Was the cabinet tempered with IELE
losing? Tampered with.
Okay.
Losing the back a day before the cops found it to match the narrative. It looks suspiciously like a brand new key.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, yeah, the back was tampered with, and it was the police that tampered with the back because they needed an excuse and a reason for why that key wasn't there the first 5 searches that they done. And then Colburn shakes and shuggles and really vigorously shakes this bookcase. The key still doesn't fall out. And then he pushes in the binder so hard that it knocks the key out the back. I mean,
it's around the corner. The key goes
it's
around.
ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous.
I want to put a photo up right quick while you guys are talking, and you tell me if the back of the cabinet looks loose in this photo. This was taken at Avery's before they removed it. Here we go. So you guys can look at that photo and you tell me if it looks like that back is loose. Doesn't look like it's loose to me.
There is no gap in the back of that
Not on the bottom anyway.
cabinet.
Okay.
No.
All right. I've got another photo. I think it's the next one. Let me check here. 'Cause I took several because
Yeah,
Oh,
you would see the light coming in
You'd
through
also
the
see the carpet.
corner.
You'd also see the carpet.
And yeah, exactly, Doc. You'd also see the carpet as well,
Yeah, you
or
would.
even the
Yeah.
wall, depending on which way it was bent. You know what I mean? So
Right.
and there's nothing there. There is nothing.
God
well,
damn.
here's another problem with the cabinet. We were putting books back in rather roughly. Well, how much room do you need to put a book in? Look at this gap right here.
Yeah.
There's plenty of room to put a book in there, and
They're
anywhere
not-
else. There,
Yeah, they weren't putting books back in. What the fuck?
Yeah.
right. Cops don't do that. They don't. Once they search an item, they're done. They take it or just leave it, the shit where they found it or where they put it when they searched it. That way they know it's been searched. Anyway, this one here is the real kicker. That back
Yeah,
does
that
not look
looks
loose to me.
right against the. it
Right.
doesn't- Yeah.
So, and if they emptied it, there's no way, if the key was back here, that they wouldn't have seen it. There's no way, in my opinion. So, anyway.
Well, they asked Lenk, because he's the one, I believe, that looked into the cabinet. I actually asked him, "Did you see the key back there?" He goes, "No."
Right. No, I didn't see anything.
So that way, Colburn had to change his narrative to say, "Oh, the key couldn't have been in the cabinet; it had to be cleverly hidden behind the cabinet." And my
Right.
shaking, rattling, and rolling it caused it to go around the corner. Yep. So now I could
Yeah,
understand.
he's a horrible liar. Horrible.
Now I
liar.
understand why Kratz was furious, and so he should have been. Correct.
Rhonda, are you back? Did you put that closet question up? Oh,
No.
wait, that's a different question. That's a different question. Was the cabinet tampered with? Okay, no, I
Yeah,
put
we did that one.
Okay. Yeah, okay. The next one is from Jaznaz. Why did they even pull out all the porn just to put it back after? Well, that is the question.
Yep, correct. But
Yeah.
they got caught. They got caught in a lie
Yeah.
because of the coins and the other items that were on top of the cabinet. As those two attorneys said, they said, "Listen, if you had shaked, rattled, and rolled that cabinet, all that material would have been fallen on the ground, and they would have taken an in situ picture." And I believe that Colburn, even on Convicting a Murderer, says, "I don't know why the coins are still there."
Right.
I don't think the
ridiculous.
police are going to pick up all those coins and put them back on the cupboard just for Stephen Avery. Do you? No.
Yeah.
No.
All right, our next question, Doc, and everybody, is from JD. He says, I'd like to ask where the new key was cut from, a copy or direct from Toyota Workshop? Well, we know that there was a
you
key.
mean the new key? The key
Yeah,
that
there was
they made
there
it
was
in
a-
the crime lab. They made it in
They
the crime
did.
lab.
They
Correct.
did.
They made it in the crime lab.
So if I'm not mistaken, they ended up with 3 keys for the Toyota. I think that's what they ended up with, or at least two for sure.
They had two keys. And
one alleged original from that allegedly was Teresa's, and the one that they created, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So they had like a blank, and they had to get the code in order to make the duplicate key. But what is bizarre is, what do they need a duplicate key for when they've got Teresa Hallbach's key, which they found on November the 5th? There was no need for a duplicate key.
No.
Culhane would have swabbed it. She would have swabbed it. Then she put it into the keyhole to turn the door, and then she put it into the ignition to see if the motor would turn over. Of course, the battery was flat, but it cranked. You know, basically, she was able to turn the key.
Right.
Or if they already cut the key, who's to say that they didn't cut two?
I don't know. That I don't know.
And we don't know the level of involvement that the locksmith had. I don't know who was talking. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So you say that it can't be the valet key from Teresa Hallbach's house because why?
There's a hint that it could be, but there's no direct evidence.
We don't know for positive. Remember that, I don't know if you saw it or not, Kay, there's a really low quality news report. They're talking to Scott Bladorn, and he's in the kitchen. Yeah, he's in the kitchen, but if you look at the back like the kitchen vanity or the top there beside the sink, the counter. Yeah, thank you. I went brain dead. There's something there that is kind of in the shape of what that key would look like with the fob kind of hanging out, but the quality's so low, we don't know.
Could be a spoon.
Could be a spoon. That's right. Yeah. Could be. We can't tell.
Yeah, don't speculate. It's not going to get you anywhere because don't forget, the other part of the key fob, the lanyard, was in the RAV4, right?
Well, allegedly, but they didn't photo it. we don't really know that it was there because they didn't take a photo.
Yeah, it's a bit of a while.
Yeah,
Neverly.
Oh, hi. No, I just want to say hi.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. So
we've got a couple. We've got a couple more, Doc. Here. These are pretty easy. From Clive Coolidge, bloody right. They deserved all the scrutiny they got. That was talked about earlier. They never done anything truthfully in this case. Right from the get-go, Stephen Avery was number one suspect and never considered anyone else. Well, I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, and that was one of the very, very early questions that we posed. Was tunnel vision investigated by Schoen? And look, unfortunately, what they tell you verbally is not exactly what they did during the investigation, right? So there's no officer's going to say, "Yep, we had tunnel vision," right? They're never going to admit to that. They'll always say, "No, it was funnel vision." But I think they honed in pretty quickly on Stephen because Fassbender let it out. Remember what he said? He goes, "Oh, we're getting intelligence all the time. That's why we started at Stevens." And I'm thinking, what type of intelligence are you guys getting? Right? So, yeah.
Well, there was all kinds of weird shit that went on, actually starting after the third, we got Skorlinski and his actions. We've got an attorney general. I think we heard from him one time. He's calling Manitowoc County Dispatch basically in a panic to talk to Mark Rohr. He wants to talk to the DA. I need his number. Well, we don't give that out. Well, can you have him call me?
Yeah.
I've just talked to Special Agent Skorlinski, and I need to talk to him. What the hell is that all about?
Like I said, Skorlinski had a lot of suspicions on Chuck Avery.
He did.
Like, we've read the DCI reports. The stuff that he was telling Chuck about, I forgot the lady's name. What's the right say? Dupees.
Lloyd Deppes.
Deppes, the one that just disappeared out of thin air.
Yeah.
And why is why is Skolinski mentioning her to Chuck that there's talk about town that you guys are also involved in the disappearance of Teresa?
Yep.
Where the hell did Skolinski get that stuff from?
Don't know. I don't know. I mean,
But
without,
you know what was
ahead.
very disturbing? What was very disturbing was that Chuck said, "Oh, he heard a rumor that Teresa Horbuck, pardon the crudeness, was gang raped by 4 Mexicans."
Yeah.
Where the
Well,
hell did he goes? I heard that from a 14-year-old girl, and Skolinski goes, "Yeah, we're chasing up on that rumor." Who's giving all this information to Chuck?
Don't know, Doc.
Crazy.
I have no idea.
Stuff.
No
Crazy
idea where that came from. It is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, you know, it goes along with a lot of the craziness that happened. I mean, there's a lot that we don't know, guys.
No.
A lot of the calls were edited out. I'm sure of that. I'm talking about Manitowoc and Calumet. There are hundreds of times that I know it's well over 100 times, probably 200 during these dispatch calls or radio calls. Hey, can you give me a 1021? Which means call me on my cell phone, because they know they're being recorded over on air. So they don't want that. They want a private conversation. Nefarious or not, it is what it is. Anyway, I just wanted I saved this last for Justine J. Wanted to thank them again for gifting.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was really nice for you to do that. We really appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, look, guys, Jack 61, if you want to do episode 6 when we come back, I'm happy for you to do episode 6. Do it any manner you want. I think this was probably the safest bet to do without using the clips, so we're still on there. But yeah, I thought we gave it episode 5 a lot of time. I actually enjoyed episode 5. Why? Because it was focused on a lot of the forensic evidence, and I thought that was really, really important in this discussion. All right, guys, shall we say our final few comments before we go?
Do it.
Yeah, okay. Jack 61, you can go first if you like.
Well, as I said last night, I don't really have too much to add to it. We've got open records requests that are coming. I've worked really hard to try to get these Jody calls. There may be not anything in them, but I suspect there is some interesting things.
Yes.
Also, Sharia's got 4 things coming she's having sent to me. So this coming week, there's probably going to be at least an extra open mic, maybe 2. I don't know what's in them. So I may be talking up my butt here, but so that's the plan right now. Hopefully Monday, Tuesday, these roll in, and we can start taking a look at it and get that presented. Other than that, you know, I'm glad Cam is going to be finished here within a week. We're going to be done with it, and we can move on and do our thing. It's been a huge distraction. It's been a massively huge distraction on Facebook and Twitter. Oh my God, or X, whatever the hell.
Oh my
Jesus
God.
Christ. Just and there's been other things that have happened, as we all know, which is fine. People can do whatever the hell they want. I don't care. Do whatever you want. But there's other events that happened that, caused a lot of consternation and problems for not only us, but other people too. So I'm glad it's going to be over, personally.
Correct.
Anyway, thanks everybody for coming. Like, share, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll catch you soon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jack 61. Just Rhonda, are you there, or
I think we killed her, Doc.
Okay, Cherie, are you there? I don't recall.
I am. Yes.
Did you enjoy the podcast?
I did. It was very interesting. Once again, please join us tomorrow night on Case by Cases channel for Ashley Garth and for about Ashley's case, and then on Thursday for Just Rhonda's case, on Daniel's case. Please.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I don't recall. Katie, how about yourself?
It was a very interesting podcast tonight. I really enjoyed it. I was wondering, Doc, what will you be getting back to on Saturdays after this is over?
I honestly like to take a break.
Okay, yeah.
Changed my therapist, who said, no, you need to stop. So I fired my therapist. I'm only kidding. I like to have a bit of a break. I think the festive season is coming up, and I think Convicting a Murderer has taken a big toll on everyone, their sanity and everything else. I like to take a little bit of a break, but Neverly and I were working on John Farrak's book. There's a new edition, and I think Neverly and I will likely get together and read the new stuff. I promise, Susan, no more dogs, no more canines. But having said that, I love to get the professional canine dog handler that Scooby Doo introduced to us. Like to get him on with his dog and explain what Sarah Fausk proposed in Convicting a Murderer. So we'll do that. But I think Neverly and I will probably put together something about the new material found in John Farrak's book, and we'll probably read it and discuss it on air. What do you think,
Yeah,
guys?
that would be great.
It'd be good.
Excellent. Looking
good.
forward to that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good night. Yeah, and thanks for all the work you do putting this together, Doc.
Not at all.
Neverly,
Not at
it's
all.
really good.
We
And
do it
Jack,
for everyone in chat. We do it
Yeah.
for everyone in chat. Yeah.
And Jack for being the DJ.
Oh yeah, he's a good lad. Thank you so much,
Pushing all the
Katie.
buttons.
Yes, thank you so much, Katie. What about yourself, Susan? Oh no, she's probably
She's knocked out. She probably she worked today.
Yeah,
Yes.
she was really tired when she got back, so she's probably passed out.
Yep. And what about yourself, Neverly?
Oh man, this was really, again, yesterday's podcast and today's podcast, it was really peaceful. I don't know how to
was
explain
good.
it, but
It was
it
good.
was really peaceful. It was smooth. People are rocking in the chat, which is always great to see. And of course, we weave in some humor because you do have to have some, levity
You
in
do.
this case. Yeah.
You do.
This is a really like drab old case. So, but hey, thank you so much for being here all the time. And we know that you're busy, that you have your families, pets, work, whatnot. And thank God you're not addicted,
God.
That's the main thing.
Correct. Thank you so much, Neverly. Much appreciated.
Sure.
And Alice, what about yourself? Did you enjoy the podcast?
Yes, Doc. Yes, it was a good podcast. Like Neverly says, the chat was brilliant. The questions just kept coming. A lot were agreeing with what we were saying, with the planting and everything like that. And like you said, Doc, we do it for the people in chat, people who have just found Making a Murderer and watched it and thought, oh my God, I need to know more, but like we always say, yes, come listen to us, subscribe, everything like that. But don't just take our word for it. Go to the website, do your own research, things like that. Our website's absolutely free. We've got Stephen's documents in there, Brendan's documents in there. There is other cases in there as well. I mean, it's not just Stephen and Brendan's case, but a lot of the information is there. So please just go do your research. Do the YouTube things, like, subscribe, share, put that bell on. You'll get notifications when we go live. Thanks to my panel. It's always great to be here. And looking forward to having a wee break and then coming back full steam.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Alice. And again, guys, I'd like to thank all my panel members for their wisdom, their time, their kind words, and their hard work and dedication. I'd like to thank everyone in chat. Thank you so much for your support. We value your time. We value your questions. And guys, we'll be back next week to do it all over again. And don't forget the upcoming podcast too, from the other guys on the panel. And thank you so much, guys. We'll catch up soon. Take care.
Good night, everyone. This has been a Foul Play production.